I'd like to call to order this evening's West Linn-Wilsonville School Board meeting. I want to turn it over to Director Douglas for roll call, please.
Thank you. Director Shoemaker.
Here.
Director Sloop.
Here.
Chair Taylor.
Here.
Vice Chair Wyatt.
Here.
And Director Vidal.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to the community, we apologize for being a few minutes late. We were coming straight out of executive session, so I had to do some housekeeping before we got down here. So thank you for your patience. I'm going to turn right to district communications, and we're going to start with Riverside High School Representative Laurel Venegas.
Good evening. Oop. All right, good evening. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to see you all again. Thank you so much for having me. I've got lots of exciting news to share with you from this last month. February had a lot of student action. Starting with our winter sports celebration night, students came to the Riverside campus for dessert and recognition of all the hard work and dedication they put into their athletics this winter. Varsity letters were awarded to participants on the swim team and wrestling team, the very first letters in Riverside High School history. So we are super proud of the Riverside athletes and the impact they have made on our school, and we are very excited to see what they do in the future. A lot of the same athletes who were celebrated this winter are continuing to do sports at Riverside this spring. Students have joined Riverside's track and field, golf, and tennis teams. Track and field is possibly Riverside's biggest turnout yet, and it's a great testament to the determination of the athletic directors, coaches, and students to help them join as many sports and activities as they can. We are all so excited to see all the amazing things they do and everything that will be accomplished this spring season. And speaking of student interests, Riverside High School has a new addition to our variety of offered clubs. Mr. Valentine began a disc golf club, and it's generated a lot of interest among students, and it has been great to see so many of them getting involved in various activities throughout the school year. We've had 3 new people join HOSA, actually, so that's very exciting. And it's always exciting to see students exploring new interests and hobbies, and it's wonderful that Riverside staff and students can provide so many opportunities. So big thank yous to them for that. Riverside is also offering chapters in the National Honor Society and National Technical Honor Society. I, along with 6 other sophomore students, attended the National Honor Society and National Technical Honor Society meeting to learn more about applications. The National Honor Society recognizes students' achievements in leadership, service, and character. The National Technical Honor Society recognizes this as well, but in addition recognizes students in Riverside CTE classes like health occupations, business and marketing, and construction and architecture. Accepted students will be inducted on April 30th and will have the chance to participate in various service projects. It's a wonderful opportunity for recognition and to make a positive impact in the community. We're lucky to have this program, and I, for one, am super excited to see where it goes. And in February, Riverside also had its first ever winter formal. The week began with an assembly run by leadership with an exciting balloon popping game. We had a 9th grade, 10th grade, and staff competing in a race to pop 6 balloons as fast as they could. In the end, our staff representative, Mr. Chapin, ended up winning. So congratulations to him for that. We saw a lot of student participation and friendly competition with the life classes. The most student participants will win the Spirit Stick for our dress up days for Spirit Week. Oh, I lost my place. The winning class is still yet to be announced for who had the most participation. And then that following Saturday on February 24th, the students attended Riverside's Winter Formal. It was graciously sponsored by the Riverside High School Booster Club. There was a lot of enthusiastic buzz from students, staff, and parents, and ticket sales went exceptionally well, and the space was stunning, decorated with balloons, lights, and snowflakes. Students put on their formal attire and looked super sharp. So Riverside is looking forward to continuing to build on their success with future events for student community. Big shout out to the Booster Club and the Riverside High School staff and event organizers and chaperones. They helped fuel a wonderful night. And then last week, coming up on March, Riverside hosted 3 Rivers Middle School, Meridian Creek Middle School, and Wood Middle School students. This was the biggest student interest turnout we've had. We've had a student panel of 10 students who answered unprecedented questions from staff and students about their experience at Riverside, and I'm proud to say they spoke very highly and very honestly of our school. Students had a lot of interest in our CTE classes, health occupations, business and marketing, construction and architecture. Riverside is also the only school to have an American Sign Language class, and there were a lot of students who attended that were interested in taking those classes. Our student panel also led incoming ninth grade students on a tour around the Riverside campus, and incoming freshmen got more one-on-one time with Riverside students and asked as many questions as they desired. They were also able to see classes and meet a few teachers, and the student panel was very excited to host and see the middle schoolers and gave lots of suggestions and positive feedback to Riverside staff for tours in the future. Athey Creek and Rosemont Middle will be visiting in April, and we're super excited to meet them and are looking forward to see Riverside's incoming freshman class this fall. And then this Wednesday, theater students will begin rehearsals for Riverside's spring production, Agatha Rex. Agatha Rex is based on a girl who stands up for her beliefs regardless of the consequences, and as a part of the student council at her school, she vigorously defends a student who's being unfairly punished. In the process, she could be expelled and lose an important scholarship, and the Riverside students are super excited to be a part of this empowering play. Agatha Rex will show at Riverside High School on May 29th, 30th, and 31st. And finally, students are forecasting for their classes next year and are working hard on building their schedules. We have some exciting classes to offer: our CTE Level 2s, IB Languages, Forensic Science, Anatomy and Physiology, as well as Psychology. Again, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure seeing you all. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next month.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's that swimmer's lung, I think, that allows you to keep that pace. Thank you so much. And next up, out of West Linn High School, we have Beatrice Gilroy.
Hello, everyone. One second. Sorry. Okay. Can you hear me if I talk like that? Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you all have been doing well. Since the last school board meeting, we have had some exciting things happen at West Linn High School. In early February, our Black Student Union hosted a successful Black History Month celebration after school on the early release day. The club offered many fun games, had music playing in the commons, and organized a 3-on-3 basketball tournament in the gym. For food, some of the club members brought in cultural food, and they also hired a caterer who served delicious chicken and pulled pork sandwiches. A week later, our Asian and Pacific Islander Club recognized Lunar New Year by selling boba at lunch and hosting a celebration after school in Student Street. After the school celebration, API sold baked goods, offered crafts and games, and even had a traditional lion dance performance, pictured on the screen in the top right. Both of these clubs had a very successful turnout at their events and received a lot of positive feedback from students and staff. They look forward to hosting similar events like this in the future for the school and community to enjoy. Speaking of community, our Red Cross Club hosted an on-campus blood drive during February. After working hard to recruit donors and operate the drive, they were able to collect 47 units of blood, which has the potential to save 141 lives. So that was great to see. During the month of February, many of our winter sports wrapped up their seasons. Both our girls and boys basketball teams made it to the second round of playoffs, with Coach Cates of the girls basketball team receiving TRL Coach of the Year. Our ski team finished 5th in league, qualifying for state, and our unified basketball team had a very fun senior night game. We even had 3 teams bring home state trophies as well, with the swim team finishing 3rd in state, wrestling getting 2nd in state, and our cheer team earning 1st in state for the first time in school history. We are so proud of our Winter Lion athletes, and we are looking forward to kicking off the spring season shortly. At this time, I also wanted to recognize West Linn High School student Joseph Murphy, who recently received the title of Oregon High School Journalist of the Year. Joey is a very dedicated journalist who attends many events and games, capturing the action in an outstanding way, including the picture in the top left corner of tonight's presentation from a girls' basketball game. West Linn High School is very proud of Joey and thankful for his hard work. After wrapping up Kindness Week, ASB jumps straight into hosting our 2024 Amazing Race competition. As many of you are already familiar with, ASB hosts an Amazing Race competition every year, mimicking the competition that takes place on TV. This year, the race's theme was video games, and the competition consisted of 12 teams of senior pairs, including Director Taylor's daughter, Savvy, competing to win money for a charity of their choice. The longer each team lasts in the race, the more money is given to their charity. The 2-week race mainly takes place after school and on the weekends, with some lunch and life class challenges. All legs of the race are filmed by ASB, and then edited recap videos are shown in life class. Today, we wrapped up the competition by hosting our Amazing Race finale live during life class, where our only co-ed team, Ryan and Janina, were crowned champions. This event definitely catches the attention of many students and creates a lot of positive energy on campus. Some of my favorite pictures of the race are on the screen today. I will say that Director Taylor's daughter, Savvy, and her partner, Sayla, had some of the most spirited and on-theme outfits throughout the competition. So that was great. We looked forward to it every night. This week at Westland High School, our theater department is wrapping up its production of Exit the King, with shows happening on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. You all are welcome to attend. We also have a few Wellness Week events being hosted by TAB and Sources of Strength at lunch this week. Since March is Women's History Month, we are also hosting a Women's Forum next Tuesday, March 12th during life class, during access time, where female identifying students will have a safe space to share opinions, thoughts, or concerns about campus at Westland. I look forward to speaking with you all next month. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We had a lot of fun watching you guys do your work. And if you haven't had an opportunity to check out the YouTube videos of the Amazing Race at Westland High School on the ASB YouTube channel, it's pretty fun and amusing to watch. You guys do a great job on that, and our family had a blast with the whole setup. So I know they were exhausted every night getting home at midnight. So good work. Next up from Wilsonville High School, Mr. Trenton Bonfilio.
Hello again, members of the school board. I hope you guys are all having a great evening. Second semester is kicked off over here at Wilsonville. We have new classes, new sports, and all types of activities that are exciting for students as we approach the final stretch of the school year. We've had a busy month this February, and we have a lot of events coming up this March that we are excited to share. Starting us off with our sports, all three of our basketball teams have had remarkable success. Specifically, our two unified basketball teams had just had their end of the year tournament, and after a well-played season, they had tons of support from students, staff, and parents throughout the season. It was exciting to watch them go the extra mile. One team took home the bronze medal, and the other team won silver in their respective tournaments. Unified is not the only team doing well. Our boys basketball team has gone undefeated in league, and our girls has also done well in league, and we are moving on to the playoffs this week. Our boys team will be playing in the quarterfinals at Linn-Field on the 6th, and we are ready to watch the team go for a three-peat this season. We are also excited to watch the girls go into their quarterfinals, which is also at Linn-Field on Thursday. The final set of sports that will be starting up here soon is going to be including golf, lacrosse, softball, track and field, and baseball. They're all currently practicing, and we are looking forward to seeing them start playing soon. Our student sports department is not the only people hard at work, however. Our Performing Arts Center and program is holding all sorts of performances this month, right before spring break. The drama department has been practicing and performing Shakespeare's The Tempest. They already had one performance last week, and they are holding 3 more performances this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in our brand new Performing Arts Center, of course. We hope you guys all get the opportunity to attend. Along with our drama, our band and orchestra are going to be hosting concerts in about 2 weeks. And that's it for our performing arts. Wilsonville has some academic news to share as well with the board. Our scientists and engineers at ICEF have been putting up the final touches on their projects. Last week at the mock symposium, we got a preview of their incredible work. Some of our students are involved in projects such as water purification, reducing carbon emissions, creating apps to help type 1 diabetics, and investigating the impact or conclusions with other scientific inquiries that will no doubt change the world. These projects will be presented and judged at the International Science Fair, and it will take place at West Linn High School, and I think that will be happening next week. We're also offering an ACT, SAT prep course for all students that are interested in getting the upper hand on standardized tests, considering a lot of colleges are going to start requiring them for admissions soon. Several teachers are leading these classes, and it is incredible to watch our dedicated staff create these programs to help benefit students when challenges arrive. Since we have seen both students and staff go above and beyond this year, Wilsonville ASB has installed both Student and Teacher of the Month awards with incentives to continue the spirit and pride at Wilsonville. This month, our celebrated students who work to create an inclusive culture at WVHS got to get those awards. The students were acknowledged for the way they include classmates and bring forward ideas and contribute to the school with community projects and incentives. Wilsonville ASB has also been hard at work as well. Over the last month, we have been greenlighting all sorts of projects, including the payment of $150 per life class to everybody out of the ASB budget. Our life class teachers at Wilsonville are being allowed to use these funds as they see fit to increase student engagement and increase belonging during their Life 100 classes. We have already seen teachers come together and combine their funds to life classes to hold joint activities. ASB has also completely reworked our Springfest celebration. After noticing a lack of interest among the student body last year in the yearly tradition, ASB has switched things up, and we are turning it into a high-quality game show in conjunction with the journalism department. This game show will be uploaded to our YouTube channel later this month. The game will have students rooting for their friends and contestants as they compete in an elimination-style show, with the last one remaining winning. We have recently showed off our contestants in a recent Springfest assembly where we had them play a game of Jeopardy live in front of the whole school. This whole student body just absolutely raved over this assembly, and the excitement for Springfest has been reinvigorated. Great things are happening all around the school, with ASB teachers and students showing their leadership strengths. Morale and pride at Wilsonville are at an all-time high, and we hope to see more exciting things as we go into the final stretch of our last semester. I'd like to thank you guys for our time, and I look forward to seeing you guys again.
Good. Wonderful job, you three. I always appreciate listening to your energy. It gives me energy, so thank you so much. So before we move on, this will be your opportunity to either stay and have fun with us, or you can go and enjoy your evening if you like. I'll give you a few. All right. Jumping right into recognitions. Mr. Pat McGuff.
Taller than I am. Good evening, board. Let's try this again. This is National School Breakfast Week, and it always triggers a time for us to get a chance to celebrate our nutrition services department. And before I introduce the two people that lead the department, Lindsay Flores, our nutrition services manager, and Barbara Finch, our nutrition services coordinator, I want to just give everyone a reminder. When we were finally starting to gain real traction in the nutrition services department, COVID hit. And it kind of suspended everything when it came to nutrition services. I'm here to tell you tonight, not only are we back, we came back roaring because of these two people in our department. They have increased participation. They have expanded the menu. They have the right people. It's one of the few places where our department gets to interact with students every single day. And I can't think of a group that has represented us better. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay Flores.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having nutrition services here with you tonight. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide, Con. So I'm going to start you off with a few fun numbers, right? Our main event is breakfast and lunch, so we have to give some facts to that. So far this year, we have served almost 60,000 breakfasts and just over 250,000 lunches. We're pretty proud of that. That brings us 35% higher in breakfast counts than last year and 25% higher in lunch counts than last year. And we expect this same growth next year. With that same growth, we will finally exceed where we were in school year 18-19, and that is a pretty exciting place to be. Next slide. So I'm going to start with some of our cultural influences that we have been working really hard to create some partnerships with. Lucy's Tamales. I wanted to show pictures of the people behind these partnerships because not only are we wanting to introduce new cultural food that's minimally processed, that meets USDA guidelines, but we want to introduce the people behind it that are working hard to help us make that happen, because without them, we can't do it. So Lucy's Tamales, Eleni's Ethiopian sauce, minimally processed, authentic food. Next slide. We've also, over the years, partnered with Soul Brothers barbecue sauce. You can see up there in the top. And many Septembers, we get a fresh harvest of grapes from Vile Vineyards, local here in the Northwest. And then recently, we were able to introduce orange chicken to celebrate Chinese New Year. And now it is a new staple on, well, new favorite of the students. We've brought jerk chicken, Hawaiian kielbasa's coming, dumplings, beef bulgogi, egg rolls, and empanadas. We're really excited about some of this new momentum, but we still have some of the traditional favorites, so don't worry, we'll get back to those shortly. Next slide. What I want to highlight are a few really unique partnerships that we've been working on. And this is new for our team and new for our district. So you can see in the bottom right, Toi Lee. She is a member of our school district, and she helped us create some traditional Vietnamese pho. And from there, we translated it to child nutrition. And here are the real pictures of us creating that and sampling with the students over at Riverside. You will see this on our menu this spring. We're really excited to introduce that. If you walk into the lunchroom, words that we heard before was, "Is that pho?" And they could smell the broth. There are parts of it that are going to be different, but there's the essence. And that's what the team is getting to bring to the students. Next slide. Taste of India. This was one of our most recent ones. And thank you, Kathy, for joining us to try some of the food. We brought in mango curry chicken, butter curry chicken, dal, and popping seed rice. This is thanks to some local owners at Happy Curry Foods out of Salem, and Anju Nathan from our district, who is helping us work with this partnership and develop this new menu item. It's now been on our menu twice, and it will continue to be a regular rotation on our menu. Next slide. We had a learning walk. Thank you for those of you who could come and join us. And we were able to teach them about some of our nutrition services at Rosemont, and they were able to join us for Taste of India. And don't forget, Dr. Ludwig was there. She was our photographer. Thank you. It means a lot that you take the time to honor our team, and you can see in the picture that they were just joyful to share a part of their day with you. Slide. So a few fun facts that we want to make sure that we leave with is all of this beautiful cultural inspiration, but we cannot forget some of the favorites. And chicken nuggets still remain a student favorite. And we recently introduced shark-shaped chicken nuggets, and we have many more shapes coming. So those tend to get pretty exciting, and they keep that participation up, which means students are eating good, healthy food. So then we also partner with Crest. Taste testings are a unique opportunity for our students, and these carrots are what they tried last year, whole fresh carrots. And the unique part about partnering with Crest is that every single student gets to try something that they maybe haven't had before. They don't have to just be getting hot lunch. And so this week, they're also trying whole broccoli on the stem, and I've heard that it's even sweeter and maybe a little bit more enjoyable this time of year. So if you have students trying them this week, you'll have to ask them what they think. We're really excited about these partnerships, and our team gets to help introduce that to the students. Next slide. So with that, those are some of our big picture things about our department that our team is so proud to be a part of. And now I'm going to bring up Barbara Finch, and she is going to share some of the details and the little stories that you might only get to see if you're there to experience them or if someone shares them with you.
Hello. It's an honor to talk about what our staff does every day, and every once in a while I get the chance to go work in a kitchen, and yes, it really does happen. Our staff is amazing. They take breakfast to the office for students who arrive late, just to ensure that those students also get a meal, because they're not likely to go down to the cafeteria, knock on the door and say, please feed us. We're really proud. We're team oriented. We have substitutes who come and help support our teams. They're a huge part of our everyday. We're organized. We're not afraid to smile at the students, say, hey, how is your day? If we don't get a response, we have time on our side. So 5, 6 years later, we're bound to get a, hey, I'm good. How's your day? We offer many choices. We try and focus on the students' needs. Not always easy with the USDA telling us what to do. However, look, this beautiful made from scratch breakfast item that is available once a week to our students. We're always smiling. When you walk into our kitchen, you will find everyone smiling, saying, hey, how are you doing? If you don't want to try it the first time, we're going to find a way to get you to look at it and go, that does really look good. We cook from scratch, not everything, but when we have a chance, we measure, we saute, we don't just take it out of a wrapper. Beautiful strawberries. The produce we have this year is amazing. If you get a chance to walk by and to see the offering, great. We're proud. This is a lunch. There's our amazing Indian food. We offer taste tests. Students aren't always sure if there's a new item, so we have little spoons and we offer a taste. Hey, this is on the menu tomorrow. Come and give it a try. And favorite is the chicken every other Thursday. We have breakfast for lunch on Thursdays. Students love it. We couldn't do without our couriers who help support our staff. Hey, I'm short on this. Could you quickly bring it over? Just so we make sure the needs of our students are met. We're so honored to be able to support our school staff and work hard every day to make sure that our students benefit from everything we do.
So as Pat said, it's National Breakfast Week. And we invite you to stop by, see our staff in action, and they'd love to meet you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very, very much.
And comments, questions from our directors, superintendent? Okay.
I just wanted to thank you for your service. Thank you for telling us a little bit about the work that you do and your great staff. And a while back, my middle schoolers proclaimed lunch as bussin', which I'm told is the highest compliment that can be given. So thank you for making bussin' meals and making sure that they're healthy and also just taking care of all of our kids. Appreciate it.
And I just wanted to thank you because before our first listening session that we had with the middle schoolers, they gave this amazing PowerPoint presentation about lunch. And I can say that there has been so much improvement. Director Vidal and I were there and we had the doll. And last year I was at Wilsonville, I was able to have one of their breakfast bars and it tastes like a chocolate oatmeal cookie. So I appreciate all of the thought and I am so excited that I want to come for the FA. Like, let me know when that's going to be at schools. So thank you so much.
Anything else? No.
I just want to thank you and your whole entire team across the district. Thank you for having Director Sloop and I come to Rosemont. That Indian food was amazing and it was so delicious. And it is really difficult to meet the requirements of the USDA, and especially with the amount of flavoring and sodium and sugar our kiddos eat now in processed foods. And I really appreciate your creativity in making it delicious. And my fifth grader at Lowry also really enjoys chicken and waffles. I get to hear about that as well. So thank you so much.
And the only thing I have to add to this is that I've done the walkthrough that you got to participate in, and I was disappointed to not see the grilled cheese sandwich pop up on there as a favorite. I would argue that it's a top 5 that should have made the list, but as long as you don't get rid of it, then we can still be friends. So, thank you guys for all that you do. I really appreciate it. And I know you put a lot of time and effort into making sure that menu is something that everybody's attracted to. So thank you.
I just want to echo, coming back to Pat, your comments when you opened this evening. When Lindsay came on board, she was working really hard to move the nutrition program in the direction that you're hearing about tonight. And then, of course, COVID happened. And the only thing I would say, Pat, is I know that we came roaring back, but I also want to recognize the heroic work that our nutrition services team did during COVID. So it wasn't that they took a back seat or stopped, and just put things on pause. They shifted like experts and began making meals that could be delivered at home and making meals that were packageable, all the different requirements that then came because of COVID. They just shifted, and the team did such remarkable work in the face of so many changes. And of course, we heard about that nationally and other school districts as well. So I want to thank you for adapting to that, doing that so brilliantly as well. We never took a back seat. We just kept moving forward. And so thank you both for your leadership. Lindsay, especially during COVID, that was a remarkable time. And you brought such positivity and can-do spirit to your team to get us through that. And now here we are on the other side. And you and Barbara have just been an amazing partnership, and with your team at the Operations Center, thinking now about expanding menus and being creative and helping children enjoy food and finding health and pleasure in eating just delicious food and expanding their palates as well and exposing other cultures and food around the world. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you both. And your team. Tell your team thank you as well from us.
Thank you. And up next, we have more recognitions. Our Director of Human Resources, Ms. Shyla Waldern.
Good evening, School Board of Directors and Superintendent Ludwig. So we're excited to have the opportunity to recognize our amazing classified colleagues tonight. And I also have invited our OSEA President, Leon Monjo, up to join me. So I'm just going to say a few words and then give him the opportunity to say a few things. So this is our Classified Appreciation Week each year that we get to celebrate. We do have a gift for every classified staff member and a few little things inside that will be delivered to them at their school site this week. And the term classified in our district includes a great many people who serve in so many different roles and help support of our district in support of our district. So the roles include administrative assistants, maintenance, nutrition services, paraeducators, custodians, IT specialists, school and safety engagement specialists, building engineers, internship coordinators, accounting technician, athletic trainers, warehouse, bookkeeper, and our licensed journeyman electricians, HVAC, and plumber. And we would not be able to run our district on a daily basis if we did not have these people here to contribute and to help make us the amazing place that we are. So here to accept the recognition on behalf of our classified employees is Leon Monjo, who's our OSEA president. This is a voluntary position in our district that includes many meetings after his regular work hours that he gets to attend and help support with. And Leon became the OSEA president last May, and he's done a great job of engaging the classified staff in district processes and hearing from them about what is going on in their school buildings and departments. And I really appreciated the collaborative and problem-solving nature that he's come into this work with, and I've enjoyed getting the opportunity to work with him this year. And things can sometimes be complicated, especially when we're working over such a wide variety of different positions in the classified group, but we always have the opportunity to sit down and talk about it and come to a resolution together, and I've appreciated that. So thank you for your commitment to our staff in the district and to the students in our district, Leon.
It is an honor to stand up here and have recognition for all the classified staff. Such a diverse group of people. It is wonderful to be able to celebrate with them in the moments that they have great joy, and be or a smaller group celebrating. Half of the classified staff would choose to operate as ghosts. We would like to show up, fix whatever problem is going on, and be gone before anybody knows that we are there. The other half of the staff have such a desire to have impacts on the students. They want to be part of their whole days, on recess, at lunch, with reading groups. They have a real heart to really just be a presence in the students' lives. It's been wonderful to represent them and to learn all about all of the different staff members, their trials and their tribulations as well, as we go throughout our work days and we work with other people. So we appreciate the recognition.
Thank you. Any comments? Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for your service. Thank you for representing, as you said, such a wide and diverse group of professions and professionals. And I love that you called out the fact that so many of the people working in your organization are sometimes unseen, and I wouldn't want to call them ghosts, but the fact that they come in, they're like magic ghosts that are fixing things. And so just want to recognize and glad that we have some time to recognize our classified staff. So thank you for all you do for them.
Mhm. Anyone else? Director Shoemaker?
I would comment that I was in a few schools last week, and I saw many of the ghosts you're talking about, and they just quietly go about doing the work, and it's necessary work, and it keeps our schools moving and running and kids learning. So as always, thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else? Dr. Ludwig?
Leon, I just want to thank you for stepping into this leadership role this year on top of everything else you do. And you've just done it with great calm, incredible competence, and compassion for everyone's situation, being a listener first, problem solving and collaborating. You've gained people's trust, their respect. You truly have stepped out as a leader, and I'm so grateful. And I would echo the same comments that what our classified staff do is remarkable, sometimes in the quiet and unseen. But I also want to focus on the fact that they do play a significant role in the life of so many of our children. And for many of them, it's that person smiling at the lunch line, someone greeting them at the door, taking the time to listen to them at recess, an engineer stopping what they're doing to support. They know each other. They know kids' names. Kids know their names. There's real deep relationships. And then those who don't work as directly with children are all about supporting that work in the school. And they're humble, and yet they're incredibly committed and so valued. So please extend our gratitude to the hundreds of folks in your association, and we're so grateful. And thank you again for stepping up for leadership, and maybe give a little bit of credit to Jared too when you think about it. But I'm
sorry that he couldn't be here tonight.
He helps out every now and then, but you truly have taken the helm with this, and we're so grateful.
Yep. Thank you. And I'd say before we get into board reports, I was going to extend the offer to Lindsay and Barbara and Leon to probably go about their evening too. I imagine if you didn't have the recognitions, you wouldn't be sitting here this evening. So wanted to wish you well, travel safe if you decide to leave. And if you decide to stay, of course, you can have fun with us. I'd bet. Thank you. All right, that will take us into board reports, and kicking us off this evening is Director Shoemaker.
Anticipate spending more time talking later, and I'm going to defer my time for that tonight.
Okay. Director Sloop.
Okay. I want to share a few takeaways from our listening session with the high school students and their experience with the career technical educational programs in our district. We had the listening session on February 12th with students, and it was one of the highlights as a board member. The board's goal was to hear student voice and authentic experience in high school. I am so inspired by these students. They are articulate and honest. The common messages these students shared is they gained valuable leadership skills, confidence, independence, pride, and they felt connected with their peers. Some learned what they want to pursue through these courses, and some learned what they didn't want to pursue. The students asked about funding and having adequate space. One of the MOB robotics students has learned to write grants, write adequate and appropriate emails. She does community outreach and team management. The students stressed the importance of communicating and educating the 8th graders about CTE versus clubs, and threw out a possible suggestion of inviting them to an outreach event. And then they also said communicating and educating the teachers and counselors about the CTE programs is important for scheduling. I appreciated their passion and openness. For tonight, it's exciting. The literacy curriculum adoption for K-5 is finally here. As we've heard Dr. Ludwig repeatedly assure us, trust the process. And I myself with many in the room, as well as our K-5 teachers, specialists, principals, and the Literacy Adoption Committee are vested in a curriculum that is encompassing foundational skills, cultural responsiveness, and high-quality text. Literacy is the foundation for all learning. Literacy and a sense of belonging are closely intertwined. I have read the Oregon Department of Education's early literacy framework several times, and each time I gleaned something new that I'd missed the previous time. And there is a graphic of a tree with 8 sections which are guided by principles. The principles are literacy begins at birth, families and communities strengthen school-based learning, foundational skills matter, every child is full of literacy promise, and educator knowledge and classroom practices are essential. These principles are basic, but so profound. The every child is full of literacy promise resonated with me. I have shared my personal story before where our son struggled with sensory processing issues and early reading was a struggle. One day in kindergarten, our son was dragging his book bag to the car, and I asked him what he checked out from the library. With excitement, he pulled out this huge encyclopedia-type book titled How Things Work. I giggled and said, cool, and then I asked him if he checked out a picture book to help with his reading. Our son replied, Mom, those picture books are just stories. This book is real stuff. Besides, when you read the book to me, we will both learn something. He then went on to check out that book each week for about a month. As I was reading over the literacy curriculum adoption notes for tonight, I was so appreciative of all the planning which occurred over the last 14 months. I also came to the realization that switching to an entirely new type of literacy curriculum, which is more of a structured literacy, it can be overwhelming, and we as a district must provide protected professional training to our teachers and paraeducators. Our K-5 teachers have the least amount of time to prep for their school day. In adopting structured literacy curriculum, I see an added bonus of expanding our hiring pool. The district can hire qualified teachers who have previous experience in the structured literacy format, or HMH, if this curriculum is adopted. These teachers would be an asset to share their wealth of knowledge and offer support in addition to the professional training provided. I know with any curriculum adoption, there's a lot of unpacking and instructional materials. During my school tours, I was inspired to hear there's a lot of collaboration between the teachers in each grade. not only for bouncing ideas and suggestions to each other, but to aim toward a direction of consistency and cohesiveness. I do have further questions about the implementation, but I'm going to save that for the actual discussion during the adoption process. I want to thank our community for their comments and feedback. They are experts in their own right because of their own lived experience. I am so appreciative of the Literacy Adoption Committee for their dedication and time in the selection process. The priorities are definitely intentional and student-focused. Thank you to the administration for facilitating the process and providing updates each month. And I will close with a quote by Koichiro Matsuura taken from the ODE Literacy Framework. Literacy is inseparable from opportunity, and opportunity is inseparable from freedom. The freedom promised by literacy is both freedom from ignorance, oppression, poverty, and freedom to do new things, to make choices, to learn.
Thank you. Director Vidal.
Today, my report will focus on reading curriculum adoption as well. Growing up, reading opened doors for me that wouldn't have otherwise been opened, given my family's socioeconomic status. My love for reading and for school got me into a university that absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. And I wouldn't have the career and family I have today if it wasn't for my education. 55% of third graders in our district are not reading at grade level, according to the Oregon Department of Education. In our district, 16% of students are on free and reduced lunch. And of those 16%, only a third of the third graders who are on free and reduced lunch are meeting grade level reading expectations, which means in our district, in a third grade class of 21, 3 students are on free and reduced lunch, and out of those 3, only 1 student is reading at grade level. These reading disparities are only exacerbated in Wilsonville, where nearly 30% of Wilsonville third graders are on free and reduced lunch. It would be difficult for a family to afford a reading tutor to supplement their child's public education if they are also receiving free and reduced lunch. In 2022, the U.S. Census Bureau reported that families' median income in Wilsonville is 38% less than in West Linn. So really, this new curriculum is not only about reading, it is also about equity. The reason why adopting the new HMH into reading curriculum in English and Spanish and supplemental materials is vital for the future of our students is because it gives our excellent primary teachers the tools they need to teach all children through a science-based reading curriculum with consistent and explicit instruction paired with high dosage tutoring and literacy coaches who will pinpoint students' instructional needs. I want to make it clear that I'm not pointing the blame at our teachers for these reading scores. Our teachers can only do so much with antiquated reading curriculum, lack of training, not enough classroom support, and a global pandemic. HMH into reading curriculum alongside literacy coaches, high dosage tutoring, teacher training, and data assessment will provide our teachers with better tools and the support they need. Now, the data I've described today doesn't even factor in the fact that 20% of people have some degree of learning disability. And of those people, 80% have dyslexia. This means in each class of 20 kindergartners, 3 kinders will have dyslexia. Over the past 14 months, I have listened and stood alongside many parents and teachers in Wilsonville and West Linn who have expressed their frustration, anger, and sadness with the current curriculum by Fontes and Pinnell. I hear you and I see you, and I am sorry that it has been such a laborious journey to get where we are today. I hope as we adopt our new curriculum, we will see higher achievement in third grade reading, especially in our students who need help the most in their school setting, whose parents can't afford tutors to supplement their public education. And as we roll out this curriculum, hopefully with the vote tonight, in the next fall, I look forward to updates that include data assessments and qualitative information from our interventions that explain to the board how our primary students are improving. Thank you.
All right, Vice Chair Wyatt.
As Director Sloop mentioned, we had a listening session with high school students, and I just want to thank her for organizing that for us. It was a board goal this year to value community voice and hear from our students. And so it was organized in such a nice way that we were able to have some questions to learn about our career and technical education curriculum, but then also just talk with students about their experiences. So really appreciate that. So thank you. And then at our executive session earlier today, we were completing what I would consider one of our most important jobs as a school board, and that's evaluating our superintendent. And so just for awareness, we take an iterative approach where 2 times during the year, we offer feedback and ask questions and ask for more information. And then at those meetings, the superintendent has a chance to hear us and then respond and provide us with the information and work sessions and opportunities that help us do our job. And so all of this leads up to a June final evaluation, but I just wanted to share out that, you know, we all take this very seriously. We know that that doing that evaluation is a big part of our jobs, and we really do not take for granted the fact that it's something that we spend time and energy doing, and really I think it's an important part of doing it well. So that's where we were this evening during executive session, and we'll be coming forward with that final step in June of this year. And that's all I have for tonight.
And I'll briefly touch on my experience with our listening session also. I'm always amused by the conversations that you have with kids when you get them one-on-one or in group settings where they're comfortable and they just get an open forum to be able to allow you to tap into what their experience is. And I think some of the takeaways for me, I had a pretty fun group, and inclusive in that group was Dr. Pryor. And I think we had a lot of fun. And it was interesting just to hear that we had kids that were science focused. We had kids who wanted to become teachers. We had kids who were very involved in the robotics program, so on and so forth. And what I was amazed at is that even with all the things that we're working to accomplish within our district, we have some pretty bright kids. I mean, these kids are so far ahead of where I was. Now, that's not saying much. That's probably a disservice to them, but they're so far ahead of where I was at the same age in high school. I was fortunate to have Laurel Venegas in my group too. And that same speed and breadth of energy that she shows when she's at the mic, she has that same energy when she's talking to you in private. So that is who she is, right? And I got to see how driven that young lady is. And it's just inspiring. And one thing that I took away from that, and I think Dr. Pryor would say this also, that, you know, kids, although they like our CTE programs and whatnot, they don't just like them, they want them to go even deeper. And what I found is that I don't know that we have the resources or the teaching capacity to go even deeper as they were asking for. And I think that there's also some challenges when kids say, hey, I'm really focused on the sciences and this is what I want to do, but the credits and the things that they have to meet, whether you have to go get an elective that is in PE or an elective that is in something else, but your interest lies in sciences. And it's like, why do I have to go take, you know, visual arts? And not there's nothing wrong with the arts, but my interest is in science. Can I take another science class? But the state doesn't allow it. And I think we do our kids a disservice when we disrupt that energy or disrupt that learning process because of something else that they have to go take that they have zero interest in. And we know that many of the things that we learn in school, well, we take away what we want and we apply it to our lives. And some of us don't use math. Some of us use math every day. Some of us don't use art, although we appreciate it. And so I just wish there was a format that allowed more flexibility based off of what the kids are saying is important for them to substitute these 3 credits for something that they really have an interest in. And so I think that was universal, meaning that if I was interested in becoming a teacher, I want to take more things along that pathway. In that pathway, you're going to get all the things that you need, whether it's reading, writing, mathematics, and so on and so forth. But it was really interesting just to hear what their feedback was on that, as far as the way they felt from a belonging standpoint. Our schools are offering a lot of different opportunities to connect with other people who share interests, whether it be your robotics team or whether it be you're an ASB. I mean, there's so many different groups that you can be a part of outside of sport. The one thing that they say too is that we don't need any more groups. We got enough of that. So it was really fun to do. Thank you, Director Sloop, for putting that together. Thank you, Director Vidal. I think you played a part in that too. No? Well, I'm thanking you anyway, just for showing up. So that's it for my board report. But anytime I get an opportunity to spend with the kids, it's always fun and such a learning opportunity. So thank you. And I will pass it to you, Dr. Ludwig.
Thank you. And now you can put up the PowerPoint. Thanks. Thank you. We'll go to the next slide. I just actually have one slide tonight because I'm not going to do a K-5 literacy update because there's experts in the room who are going to do exactly that tonight and let you know everything that they've been up to, as you've already mentioned. Just a couple of events I want to highlight from February. Another great opportunity for us to meet with our PTO, PTA parents across our K-8 schools. We try and do that 3 times a year. We've been doing that for a couple of years now. And we actually took the same format that we did for the board work session around what are the processes, procedures, policies in place in the district for responding to student behavior. We had that visual and then those scenarios and engaged our parents in that so that they could deepen their understanding of those systems, but then also ask questions. So you can see that first picture on the top left was one of the tables where a couple schools and parents were together in that conversation. If you've been out and about in February, there were a lot of these international nights that were mentioned, Chinese New Year, but other ones that celebrated the diversity in our schools, and families got to share their culture and their heritage with booths and information, as well as music teachers getting involved and sharing global music pieces, students singing, rhythms, and all sorts of events and activities. I think the favorite is always the taste testing at every booth because families bring different samples of food as well. So those are fun to go around and visit a number of those. You've mentioned the school board listening session. You can see that picture in the middle. I want to thank our 3 principals who did a remarkable job of not just hosting, but finding students who were available that evening, who were interested, and preparing them for that session. And I can't echo enough the same comments you have that these were remarkable students who felt comfortable right away, sharing what was on their hearts and minds. And afterwards, just even unsolicited, said, "Thank you so much for letting us talk to you and for listening." So I want to appreciate the school board for demonstrating your level of interest and commitment to our students through that work session. I want to thank Dr. Jennifer Spencer-Imes as well, who did a lot of coordinating to make that work session happen. The Awabe Conference, another one that we are deeply committed to, the work of the Oregon Association of Bilingual Education. A number of our teachers at that conference presenting. I'm seeing Maria in the front row, who is a consistent presenter at a number of conferences. You'll get to hear from her tonight on literacy, but just want you to know that we have talented educators who are sought out to present and share their expertise at these conferences. On the far right, you'll see the logo of Awabe, and you'll see our own Elisa Lee, who's on the board, presenting a scholarship to Jocelyn, one of the high school students, seniors at Wilsonville High School, who was awarded a student scholarship for her academic excellence, as well as some writing that she did in application for the scholarship. And it was great to see her grandfather there, so incredibly proud as a family member. Earlier in the evening, I mentioned to you that we had our first Educational Equity Advisory Committee meeting. This was an orientation for them to get to know each other, and then also to unpack what is the legislation around the committee, and then some overview of components that the district has in place around equity in terms of policies and practices and programs, kind of getting their bearings. They'll be meeting each month as for the remainder of this school year to start to put some structure around the committee and some agenda format, some norms, processes, and protocols as they get their feet out from under them. As you may remember, earlier when I shared with you about the committee in the year, I mentioned that we didn't have to start this year, but that we chose to. In the legislation, districts that have 10,000 students or more did have to start last year, but districts with fewer than 10,000 students do not have to create this committee until the fall of 2025. But we went ahead and started this year because we already had a parent committee and we had a district committee, and it just didn't seem, it just didn't make sense to delay bringing those together in the form of this advisory committee. So I want to thank the board for their approval last month and for us to be able to get this group up and going. And I'm going to end there because I'm going to yield the rest of my time for conversations later this evening about K-5 literacy. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ludwig. And that will take us into our consent agenda, which requires board action. And so do I have a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All right, I'll turn it over for a vote to Director Douglas.
Director Shoemaker,
Yes.
Director Sloop,
Aye.
Chair Taylor,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wyatt, Director Vidal.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. This will take us into public comment. This first session of public comment is for residents who have something that they would like to share with us in regards to an item that is directly tied to tonight's agenda. And we have two guests for that, but I'm going to just go through our public speaking and public comment kind of rules of engagement, so to speak. So first off, we're glad you're here and we're glad you're coming to share. This is not an opportunity for you to use it as a soapbox to preach to a community beyond the board. It's an opportunity for you to speak to us directly. It's not an opportunity for us to actually respond. So we just are here to listen to you. We ask that we don't cheer or boo and that we treat everybody with common courtesy. Please keep it to 3 minutes. And if you go over 3 minutes, I will let you know that you have gone over. And our first speaker is Andrew Clark. Yeah.
Been a little over a year and a half since my family began a journey of literacy advocacy. And so it's a very exciting night, I think, for a lot of people in this room. But really what I want to do is I really want to show my immense gratitude to the teachers who participated in this process. I think the sheer number of teachers that showed up to provide input, that were engaged, that wanted to join later because they heard of what was happening, I think is a great sign. I think it shows several things. One is that the teachers are engaged and invested in our students in our district, which is what everyone wants. And two is that it's beyond past time for a change. So I think they realize that they need help with what's happening in their classrooms. And so they showed up in force and with their opinions, which is great. Ultimately, this is a tool that's going in their toolbox. And so, this is just the start of that journey, right? Today, we're giving them the tool, but how are we going to teach them how to use it? How are we going to provide them the support moving forward? I think seeing the engagement that we have from teachers, it's a great opportunity for us to allow them to help provide some of the direction on that. Because who knows better what's needed in a classroom than a teacher, right? So what opportunities they need for professional development? What opportunities do they have for feedback, right? How do we make sure that every month we're coming together? The last thing I think we want as a school district is teachers going back in their classrooms and doing something different and hiding that, right? We know that we had that in our district previously. Different classrooms, different curriculums, because what they had was not working. So how can we ensure that moving forward, we have everyone on the same page? We're providing these opportunities. We see the opportunity with the MZ training, seeing the engagement of teachers wanting to get this. There's a hunger in the community of teachers. This conversation has never been an attack on teachers. It's been about the students, and it's been about getting the tools and support, right? We know our teachers are underpaid and probably not respected enough for the work that they do with our kids. It's a hard job. And so really this is about putting them first and giving them the tools to show up on a daily basis for our kids. Because for every kid that we're able to teach to read, that's another family that's not going to have to experience what we've had with struggling readers in our house. And so that's why this is so important to us. We would love to see continued transparency around reading without providing clear short-term and long-term goals. How do we know where we're going? We're going to put this nice shiny object out into the public, but how do we know it's working? And we shouldn't be ashamed of saying something's not working either, right? Like that's not, people use that to attack people, but that's not what this is about. This is about doing better. And if we can't acknowledge that, we're going to have a hard time making those improvements. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
And our second and final speaker is Mr. John McCabe.
Good evening, John McCabe, Westland, Oregon. I won't be taking the full 3 minutes. Each member of the board will, I sent an email out after the meeting began because I didn't want any questions from the administration on it. But this district this year sent out 2 separate audits. One went to the Oregon Department of Education on January 4th. Another one went in the month of February that went to the Secretary of State. Other than the opinion of the CPAs, both audits were completely different. Numbers were off by millions. As a board, there should be answers of why are there 2 separate audits. It's not allowed under federal or state law. The 2 separate audits were sent out, like I said, one to ODE, one to Secretary of State. Every board member has those audits now. You can review them. You can ask questions of anybody. But I hope at some time you also ask questions of me so I can show where the errors are. But it's an unfortunate issue. Thank you.
All right. That concludes public comment. Is there anyone who, that was going to be my question, who did not get to sign up? And would you please come forward and we will make room for you, and you can just state your name. And I know you're a Westland resident, just for the record.
I just wanted to come up and say thank you for all the hard work, and to definitely the literacy team for all the hard work that was done.
in order to come to where we are today. My oldest son was diagnosed in October of 2015. So it's been a long road of trying to convince somebody that this is a better way to teach kids how to read. And talking about the equity piece, I used a tutor for my oldest son, and then I tutored my younger one myself. But it was $65 an hour. And in order for any progress to be made, they need to go twice a week. And, and it can last for 2 years or more. And nowadays, the going rate is $95 to $100 an hour. So it is huge to have this in place in order to reach everybody, because it is an equity standpoint. And so I just wanted to say thank you for making this move forward in order to help everybody with literacy. Thank you.
All right. Are there any others that may have forgotten to sign up? No? All righty. And that takes us into board business. And leading us off from Department of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Soyson.
Good evening. And Dr. Pryor is going to join at the desk, and then would like the other presenters from our adoption team, if you would mind coming up and standing kind of like a small choir just around the podium as we speak, and Dr. Pryor will introduce them. But then if you would each, before you speak to your slide, maybe kind of say who you are again, so that our board and our audience knows who's speaking. Next slide. So we want to begin by saying that the renewal and adoption process has really been an example of teamwork and everybody being in the boat together. And it's a testimony to the skills and the collaboration and the commitment of our teachers, our specialists, our teacher librarians, our instructional coordinators, assistant principals, and principals, those who are doing the work in the schools every day. We also want to say that we are grateful for the parents in our community. And this long year and a half that we have actually been working on this, there have been many one-on-one conversations. There have been times for listening. There have been times when they have given an incredible amount of their time to bring forward things in the spirit of partnership. And so we would be losing part of the team not to think that the parents, and some of whom are in the room this evening, are part of this process. There's another thing that we just want to clarify. I know there've been some questions about this. Dr. Pryor and I were sitting at the desk not too long ago, and we were talking about the Early Literacy Success School District Grant. And it overlaps with the adoption process. And some of it comes in the terms of what we've already heard this evening, the commitment to the actual ongoing training and professional learning and hiring that has to be in place to do this. So we'd be remiss not to talk about them together. So as you recall, when you approved the literacy grant, Linn-Wilsonville School District made a commitment to 4 of the 5 choices for what you spend your money on. The high dosage tutoring, which is beginning this spring, and that is a commitment to students who need that tutoring receive 90 minutes a week, some of it during their literacy block, some of it in other times. But the intent of that, and the intent of it being in the legislation, is, again, what you've heard this evening about school districts providing that tutoring rather than families providing that tutoring. So that is one area that we have committed to. The other is the professional learning. We know that we were not the school district that adopted curriculum in the most quick fashion, that it didn't take us a couple months because we used this language that Dr. Ludwig started sharing with you over a year ago about renewal. And renewal really means the professional learning. We started last spring with sessions for our instructional coordinators and around the piece that we knew we needed to do the most work with because we hadn't had a structured, dedicated way to do it previously, and that was foundational skills. I recall being at Stafford Primary School last year, actually around this time, and doing one of the first pieces of those sessions. Then in April, we had sessions with teachers after school to start to get into what are the big ideas of looking at the foundations of literacy. We offered it again during the summer, during a 4-day course that was a start. And then, because not everyone and every teacher attends in the summer, we had sessions in October and November. But we want to be really clear that we felt like we needed to provide this so that those who were going to be on an adoption team had a lens, and that those who were going to get new materials had some background, not only to select them, but to begin using them. However, that's not over. The district is committed to, in looking at hiring the literacy coaches, to be continuing with this for the next 2 school years. The research tells us that selecting the materials is relatively the easy part. It's the work in using them and in using them consistently and in using them with fidelity and in using them coherently that makes a difference in student learning, which is the reason for our investment in the top 3 things. And then the last thing is the extended learning, which will be not the same summer learning program that we have had previously, but in K-5, extended hours and extended focus on literacy, because we know also that the idea of extended learning, some children need to have that opportunity and practice and not just have school's over and what happens again in the summer. Especially children who might not have as many opportunities to do this at home on their own. There was a question around the one piece that Linn-Wilsonville is not spending the early literacy grant funding on, and that is on the actual materials themselves. We budget for curriculum adoptions, and prior to the grant had budgeted for the materials adoption. So that's just something in looking at, there were 5 ways you could spend the money, and we have opted to look at 4 out of 5. And again, it took us a while to lay that groundwork, to bring teachers in and to start the cycle of professional learning that you want to get going before you even select the materials, and then to continue to live into that. Next slide.
All right, our adoption team leaders who are here tonight, they represent they'll be doing the bulk of our presenting, and they represent a very wide range of 67 teachers, learning specialists, language specialists, literary coaches, and instructional coordinators who all volunteer to participate in the process, which we'll be telling you more about this evening. But let's pause here, and I'm going to introduce each person, and as Dr. Swaitson say, you can say a brief hello to our board of directors here. So we have Nancy Fulcher, who's a first grade teacher. And Melissa Hall, a principal. And Megan Hogan, our literacy coach. And Maria Vera Weiser, a dual language teacher of kindergarten. And Dorothy Valentine, a first grade teacher.
Yeah.
So I think that we have told you about this before. We just wanted to remind you, this is truly a group of volunteers. We heard a strong ask from teachers and community members to be very transparent and to not be perceived as putting together a team with a preconceived outcome. So we opened it up to anyone who wanted to attend, not really sure how many people would want to. We were not expecting 67 people, but that's how many we had. Our goal was to ensure we had representation for all schools, all grade levels, and all specialties. And we hit that no problem. And then people kept coming. Every time we met, Dr. Soyce and I would set up chairs. And every time we did that and people arrived, we would have to go look for more chairs because the group kept returning each time. So it was a highly engaged, very hardworking group of people who came right after the school day and brought forth their absolute best thinking. Principals and assistant principals and instructional coordinators, they did attend. We were asking that a leader from each group, school always try to attend, but they were there to observe and learn and not to influence the process. So they weren't directly participating, but they were listening carefully to understand the needs of their teachers and occasionally answering questions as necessary. There were also district staff there, mostly in the role of facilitating, bringing in the speakers and the materials on the assigned dates, gathering materials, locating resources, and trying to lightly facilitate to ensure all voices were heard and that diverse opinions could be brought together to come to a consensus. There was a lot of care given to let the teachers' ideas lead the outcomes of the work. Next slide, please. So this will be familiar to you also, as you've been hearing the updates each month. But if we think about the process as a whole, there are 3 parts if you want to look at it in this way. And tonight we're in the middle. But as a review, we began by renewing practices back in March and April of 2023 with foundational skills training for our instructional coordinators and some of our teachers during that time. And then that moved into foundational skills and literacy best practices training for teachers and specialists during August and November through November of 2023. And that's when we began our first MZ intensive training during the summer, which a large group of teachers came to in August 2023. And so then that led to the specific adoption process, which we're going to describe to you in more detail tonight. And that went through from September 2023 until it is March of 2024. And then as one of our community members said tonight, it's not over with tonight. We have a lot of exciting and complex work ahead of us because it is truly the teacher that makes the difference for students and a teacher that has good materials and knows how to use them. So we already have many teachers signed up to attend an MZ intensive training in June and a second session in August because we had so many people interested in it. We will be training all teachers and specialists with the new materials. That will be a year-long endeavor because it is complex work and we need to move at the pace that teachers feel like supports their work as they also teach everything else that they're working on teaching throughout the year. We will repeat the MZ intensive training June and August of 2025 with the goal of especially every early grade level teacher participating in that. And then we're going to need to continue. 1 year is not enough to bring up everyone's to the level of expertise that I know West Linn-Wilsonville teachers would want to achieve in 1 year, as well as we also have turnover. We'll have new staff coming into our district, so we will continue training the following year in 2025 and 2026. Next slide, please. So before I turn it over to our team members here, I want to review a few key elements of the adoption process. First of all, we had 10 sessions beginning September 13th, and we're not done yet. We have a final session on March 13th, assuming all goes smoothly tonight, to begin hearing from teachers exactly what was mentioned tonight, their views on what they need around professional learning and training with the new materials. And that will influence how we bring that training forward. We have collected input throughout the process in a very transparent way. We've collected input from all teachers and specialists. Part of our adoption team members' work was to go back to their schools, talk to their grade level teams, and bring that information back. They also helped encourage their peers to participate in online digital input forms. And then we took all that and we collated it and we made it available to everyone on the committee so they could read all the responses. We did the same thing with our 2 parent sessions. We provided multiple ways of community members to give input, and then we collated and typed that into a shared document so that community members could see, so that participants on the adoption committee could read the input of community members and consider that as they were making decisions. As you know, our purpose was to identify and select core curriculum and a supplementary foundational skills program. And we also knew that the supplementary program, I heard somebody the other night say it had to play well with the core program. It had alignment in terms of what we might use to support the students who need additional help. The adoption team started with a blank slate. We just began with the ODE approved materials list, and we used a rubric and we started identifying what our priorities were. The consideration of supplementary materials was based on materials teachers have been piloting in some schools, and with some eagerness began piloting across several schools this year. And all 9 primary schools are adopting the same core program and supplementary program for grades K through 5. It was really heartening last week when we held our second community member meeting, because at the adoption committee meeting, we had a vibrant discussion around the importance of really committing toward using the same thing across all schools. And then we heard parents ask for the same thing, which was really heartening. I think the reasons stem right to what's been said tonight around ensuring every child gets what they need, regardless of what school, what grade level. And I think even maybe more importantly for teacher satisfaction and staying in the work, knowing that it's easy to collaborate with their peers. When we're thinking about a grade level team coming together to support all the levels of instruction needed, when you all have the same curriculum, it's much easier to plan and to share that work and bring forward your best ideas. So with that, next slide, please. I think Megan is going to take over.
Hello, everyone. So to begin, I'm going to provide a brief outline of what we did during the adoption process. So to begin, we grounded ourselves collectively as a literacy adoption team in both reviewing research as well as data. In regards to the research, we looked at research that was grounded in evidence-based ideas to guide both what we value in our instruction as well as in our chosen core and supplementary curriculum. Along with this, we analyzed our student progress and outcomes data, looking at both Ames Lab data in kindergarten and first grade, as well as MAP data. Once we had this foundation in research and data, we then went into the portion of both identifying and evaluating curriculum. To begin, we grouped ourselves into teams, either by specialty or by grade level. Within those teams, we generated a list of look-fors or priorities within the curriculum we would be choosing. Once doing that, we then looked at the Oregon Department of Education's approved instructional material list, as David previously mentioned, and we looked at the curriculum that are all included within that list. When deciding which curriculum to then move forward with, we looked at ODE's rubrics to evaluate the materials. Along with the state rubric, we also looked at the Institute for Education Sciences national rubric. We did this for 2 reasons. First, to get a broad sense of where a strong rubric comes from and what it entails, as well as making sure there was alignment between both the state and national curriculum. Now, in doing all of this, we then decided the 3 curriculum to move forward with to then interview publishers. The 3 that we chose were HMH Into Reading, Benchmark Advanced, and Savvis My View Literacy. We developed questions, 10 questions that would be asked to all 3 publisher presentations. Along with that, we asked each publisher to then model a foundational skills lesson to see what that would look like. And we asked them to cover what a literacy block would look like for both whole group, small group, and individual instruction. Then throughout these presentations, we then used our own created rubric based off of those look-fors and priorities we had developed that also aligned with both the state and national rubrics to decide and evaluate each program. Then we used all of this information to select both a core curriculum as well as a supplementary. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we're now going to dive deeper into each part of this adoption process. So first, I'll cover this research review. We asked the question, what is the most important in teaching reading and writing so that all of our students are successful? To begin, we focused on peer-reviewed national research. Now, when we say peer-reviewed, we made sure that the research was conclusive, that it maintained credibility, especially when scrutinized by others in the same field, and that it was also evidence-based. We did this so that as an adoption team, we could have a collective and shared understanding of our priorities moving forward and what we know works to teach students how to read. The last two under key research that the adoption team reviewed show what we focused our time on. The first was What Works Clearinghouse Institute of Education Sciences summary. Now, what this outlined was evidence that strongly showed students' ability to read and what worked for them, what had moderate evidence and what was weak evidence. And what Clearinghouse found is that the strongest evidence aligned with teaching students phonics and their ability to relate single isolated sounds to those letters and also to decode whole words in isolation and in context. So we really put this at the forefront of our foundational skills moving forward. Along with this, we looked at Oregon's early literacy framework as a guidepost throughout the process, focusing especially on the 5+2 pillars.
So once we had kind of unpacked some of the research and identified what was important, we laid that alongside our data here in Linn-Wilsonville. We looked at AIMSweb and our NWEA MAPS data to nationally normed assessments, highly correlated. And we were able to then, look at those multiple data points and really determined similarly that we needed to identify curriculum that would support students in phonological awareness, phonics. And this work of looking at data was something that we needed to put into our practice as well. And it's something that I think many schools have started to do already within this year. I mentioned to Barb that those were not my triangles. My triangles were slightly different at the beginning of the year, a whole lot more red. But with some of the shifts already this year, we did our winter benchmark and we started to see growth. And I am hopeful that with our new adoption, that our continued look at this data, we'll continue to see student growth. It's really exciting when you can see that change. Next slide. So then once we looked at our research and looked at our data, both school and district-wide, we were able to then really look at the ODE criteria for our different grade level bands and be able to identify curriculum programs off of the ODE approved list and be able to kind of rank them using those rubrics. And again, we went from 5 down to 3, those benchmark advance, HMH into reading, and MyView literacy. We also identified that having a common curriculum that was also provided in Spanish would create that co-planning and co-teaching and that alignment so that grade levels, regardless of dual language, regardless of school or team, that we could team around those. And so these 3 provided materials both in Spanish and in English. And we want, our teams using the same curriculum and the same material so that we can have that alignment and that teaming. Next slide. Yeah.
There are 3 criteria area that our adoption team returned to in evaluating the materials. And the first one was foundational skills, including vocabulary and writing, cultural responsiveness with high quality text and strategies representing diverse cultural and language backgrounds and experiences, accurate and representative telling of historical and current events, and like she said, Spanish with authentic text, so dual language students experience the same curriculum. The high quality text with instructional pacing to promote reading and writing for meaning, challenge and use the reading skills to understand and use information. We also talk, as a dual language team, we were thinking about a curriculum that promotes explicit metalinguistic connections between English and Spanish, and that this curriculum is able to support the needs of our multilingual students. We also were coming with the lens that we needed a curriculum that provided multiple access points for our ELL students as well. And it also that have tools for all of our children who are newcomers and have different level of educations. We know that we're receiving more and more migrant students from different part of the world that has had interrupted education. So we wanted to make sure that we had a curriculum that allow all these students different access points. So regardless of their language and culture. So we created a list of questions for each grade level for the students so we can include their views and experiences of reading. Some questions are responses to materials that they wish be shown, and our colleagues at the school contributed to and reviewed the question for the students. We were able to ask our peers to also help us to see what question do you want us to ask this publisher to ensure that we could evaluate programs based on the same criteria. So we prepare questions and prompts from the 3 publishing companies and receive their answers when they gave us the presentations. I think that what is most important is that we were able to come back to our schools and make sure that our peers told us, what do they want? What are the questions that you have that we want all the companies to answer for us? And that was really important because when we asked some questions, we couldn't see, okay, this is a question that, or this is an aspect that they are not as strong as other companies. So.
So this is the ODE rubric that we've been talking about. And I'm not going to read through all of them for you, but just know that we were more particular in a lot of these. And we also that wanting to make sure that the curriculum was really culturally responsive. So these were all the things we were looking at when we checked out the 3 different curriculums. Next slide. So here's the 3 curriculums, and it's hard for me to have my back to people. So here are the 3 curriculums, and I'm just going to tell you, all of them say they have all the things. And so then we want to take a look and be like, what do we think? Who really has the things that we really want? So My View Literacy fell off relatively quickly. Their foundational skills weren't as strong, and it wasn't very user-friendly. So then it was Benchmark and HMH that we were really looking at. Both of them have pretty good foundational skills, but HMH separated their foundational skills. So when I say foundational skills, that's that phonics, phonemic awareness, that science of reading that you hear people talk about. That's where that is. And HMH pulled theirs out, separate from that vocabulary learning, that knowledge learning. They pulled it out separately. It's like 30 minutes a day, K-2, this is what you're doing. Benchmark did that as well, but it tried to blend it in. And that separateness, to me, created a much better, well, to all of us, a much better foundational skills program and a better knowledge building program. It was like, I felt like Benchmark was trying to do it all at once and it hurt both of them. Also, HMH also has slides to use to teach. So when you're in front of 24 kids and it's a new curriculum, trying to remember what to do and when to do, and did I leave that poster in my car that I was supposed to have up? The slides are in front of you. You can go and edit the slides, which is also really helpful. So if my class didn't get it yesterday, we're going to see that slide again in today's slides. So, and also just across that, the district, having everybody using those slides to teach, I think is really helpful. So, and I'm going to look at my crew too, if there's anything that I forgot of why HMH for us kind of stood out. And it was K to 5, really how everybody voted. Like when we went, because you'd meet like in first grade and then you'd all get together and think, I don't know how everybody else voted, what they thought. And it was amazing that everybody kind of came to that same place.
And the materials were trans-adapted and not translated. So that was really, really important for us. They have authentic Spanish author. So
Yes.
that is really important
Yes,
for
so
the
they had authors that were from different cultures. So we weren't just listening to white authors. So that we had a bunch of different ones, which is very, very helpful. I also forgot to mention that HMH in their literature that you use real books that you would have read to your kids or have in your house to teach the writing, to teach the knowledge building. So they're, fabulous literature that we love because we don't want to get away from that. We love that part. So that was another piece.
And I would also love to add on, as Nancy mentioned, HMH had a really strong K-2 foundational skills program, but that same program continued from kindergarten through 5th grade, and each year built on previous so that there was a really comprehensive scope and sequence for our upper elementary students as well.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Like something that we are super, super excited for dual language is that we can also start using the English curriculum, that foundational skills, so we can start teaching English foundational skills since kindergarten. So our kids are going to also get that English foundational since kindergarten, which is huge.
Okay, next slide. So again, you use that OD rubric. Nancy and I were in the same group. We're both first grade teachers, and it was a really open process. Principals didn't weigh in. Barb and David didn't weigh in. It was very authentic in that it was that back and forth between teachers with our literacy coaches and our learning specialists weighing in. And it definitely emerged that HMH was stronger. That high quality text, it has 33 big books at kindergarten. It's got 10 big books at first grade. I think one of them is at Rocket in My School Shoes with Pete the Cat. So again, but also it had culturally relevant and that trans-adapted. And so that high quality text really emerged that HMH was strongest. The same with that writing. So we looked at curriculum that would support, those 4 different domains. So reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And with this knowledge building HMH into reading, we really saw a lot of student talk, student voice, also a lot of prompts to help teachers know how to support their multilingual learners. It comes with an ELD flip book with some really beautiful anchor charts. So again, things are already created. Things are there, they're aligned. They fit together like a puzzle where I think, teachers have been creating some beautiful, anchor charts or some beautiful sentence stems within their classrooms. But it's really nice to have it created and to have it aligned across grade levels and across classrooms. Next slide. Which one am I on? Oh, so I talked about just that knowledge building. It's really nice to see that it also aligns with our Oregon State social studies standards and our NGSS science standards. And so again, classrooms will have similar materials and similar experiences, and teachers can team around those same materials. The same with our foundational skills. So HMH includes a structured literacy scope and sequence, as Megan kind of talked about, those skills build across K-5, but it's really systematic and explicit in all the different areas, including handwriting, phonological awareness, letter knowledge, print concepts, that all of those different areas are addressed within that 40-minute lesson. And you can see the flow and how those skills build. So that structured literacy pathway is included within HMH. It's 30 to 40 minutes. I also think HMH had not only authentic literature, but also a plethora of decodable text.
I also know that Barb and David have kind of budgeted also for additional high quality decodable text, because we know even 1 or 2 stories practicing that CK sound or the magic E, that you're going to have groups of students that need additional text. And really shifting from those levels readers to more skill-based decodable text. They even have printable blended books that we can send home, so that homeschool connection. Next slide. Also, it really did reflect a range of text types. So like I said, those big books for kindergarten and first grade, but then there's mentor text within grades 2 through 5. It also has separate read aloud books. Second grade has 30 titles, so really rich text that are integrated throughout the literacy block. I also think HMH emerged for me with their assessments. Just like our literacy adoption team looked at multiple assessments, any good teacher, is going to look at multiple data points, especially for our struggling students. If they do poorly on one assessment, we want to back that up and say, was it just the assessment? Was it this? And so HMH has that correlation where you can use different types of assessments to really understand, what do students know? What are they ready to learn? What to do if they already know it? And it makes planning for teachers really easily as well. So their online, what was it called? Their Ed platform is pretty user-friendly, that when you put in that assessment data, it can then direct you towards what skills, what lessons, what tools to use. That also allows for our learning specialists and our ELD specialists to use similar materials. They have a word study studio where even if you were a 4th grade teacher with, say, a student who was very emergent in their foundational skills, you can go to this studio, collaborate with your literacy coach or your learning specialist, and be able to pull out lessons that are going to address their needs. So I think that also really was a point that many teachers really liked, that we could provide that high dose tutoring. We could understand even our more gifted learners how to extend their learning, and that the curriculum really made that very user-friendly, where you didn't need to go to multiple places, that it was all right there, and that across grade levels and across support systems, that we could have this common tool to help us plan. Oh, and I talked about assessment.
Okay. So the adoption team is bringing forward a supplementary, or what we would call a complementary foundational skills program, along with the HMH core program. The team reviewed 4 programs for foundational skills that have been tried in the Linn-Wilsonville School District. The 4 programs that were considered were Foundations, Haggerty, U-Fly Foundations, and Words Their Way. Now, the Oregon Early Literacy Framework outlines that our core curriculum should work in conjunction with the supplementary curriculum, so that's something we kept in mind. When looking at these supplementary curriculums, the team used the ODE rubric, focused on that foundational skills section, reviews of the program, considerations for special education and dyslexia, along with how the program, again, fits with that core curriculum, so that we can have consistency across the district. Next slide, please. At this point in time, the adoption team is recommending U-Fly Foundations as the supplementary or complementary program to be used with all students. Some reasons for this is that U-Fly is systematic, explicit, and has evidence-based results that we've also seen here in the Linn-Wilsonville School District. Along with this, the district has mentioned that we are dedicated to furthering our professional development through the Institute for Multisensory Education, or IMSE as we've called it. Now, the great thing is that U-Fly and HMH correspond very nicely to the IMSE approaches and strategies, and that we can then incorporate these IMSI strategies in our foundational skills teaching of HMH and UFly, and that we are committed to all K-2 teachers and specialists being trained. Along with this, as I mentioned, UFly has been piloted in the West Linn-Wilsonville schools successfully, and it is also in use by our learning specialists in all schools across the district, and that we plan to continue using this in special education. On top of this, I want to outline that I went through the HMH scope and sequence for their structured literacy program, as well as the foundational skills taught in 3 through 5. When I broke down by grade level the skills taught, it aligned really nicely with those taught by UFly, and I compared the two and the similarities and differences. With these similarities between both HMH and UFly, it's a really cohesive match, and teachers can use this to have a really well-rounded Tier 1 curriculum, as well as Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction for those students who need it.
So I'm going to speak a little bit to just the overall process, and I really want to bring forward just the principal lens or the leader lens to this, and then also just some things that we're thinking about implementing this spring and what that's going to look like moving forward. I have to say, you know, I think you hear from my colleagues here, it's a pretty thoughtful, incredible group. There are 67 people. I'm at Stafford. You'd think I can get to Riverside quickly and on time, but I never could. And it would be standing room only for me by the time I got to the room. But it just really speaks to the commitment and dedication and just, you know, how student-centered our educators are. So it was a pretty, for me as a leader to go, and I tried to go to as many as I could, to be able to be a fly on the wall, to listen in on conversations, not only for my own staff, but across the district, was really powerful because it gave me just a sense of our vision and how we're moving towards that, and also what are the needs of our educators right now and our teachers in the classroom. I also really feel that there was a lot of value, and it's not often that we get to come together, all schools K-5, and for colleagues to be able to collaborate and talk about, here's what's happening in my classroom, okay, what's happening in your classroom, and seeing that we're kind of in this together, and also things are happening outside of our schools that we can learn a lot from. So I feel like that was a really important experience. I know that my teachers who are on the adoption team came back really feeling invigorated by the conversations that they had and the process they took part in. You know, overall too, as a leader, we're always thinking of how do we make space for what we're learning and sharing with the staff. There was a select few who are on the team from each school site, so we really worked to bring that voice back. I'm speaking for Stafford, but I know all principals did that too. During teacher workshop times, our adoption team brought back materials and left them in the lunchroom, and you would often walk in and they would be eating their lunch and looking through the HMH and talking, you know, light lunch banter over that. But so there was some really casual conversations around it, and then also structured times during teacher workshop where we brought forward, the team brought forward what they learned and shared the process, collected feedback, brought it back to the adoption committee, and it was a really reciprocal process that way. So I know staff felt heard and felt like they were part of the process even when they weren't in those meetings. And they really feel listened to in that process, which is an important piece when you're bringing in new curriculum and looking to implement something new. I think another thing that I'm really excited about in this process is that I think it's easy to say, okay, we've done this and now we're moving to this. And it's really important to remember that we have so many strong foundational pieces in place and some really amazing work that's been happening across all our schools in the area of literacy. So this is an opportunity now to refine and calibrate and continue to build upon those foundations. You know, I can think about at Stafford right now, you know, across the classrooms that I'm in and out of every day, and looking at what my teachers are doing and how they're helping students grow in the area of literacy and other areas. And it's just an opportunity for us to get better and better. But to remember that there's so many good things in place that we get to build upon, which is an exciting process. Next slide, please. So I think top of mind is the implementation piece. Once we have our materials selected,
the big work happens, the big lift of what's this going to look like day in, day out, and how are we going to implement this in a way that is cohesive and with fidelity, and that is also providing teachers support that they need in this process in service of our students. And so the team's already spoken to one of the biggest pieces is continued training around the MZ training. And I'm really excited. I was looking at the list again today at the number of my own staff who are interested and have signed up and are waitlisted in K2, but also 3, 4, and 5. And that really speaks to our upper grade teachers seeing the need to understand foundational skills to best meet the needs of their students and to understand the trajectory that we are teaching for our students K5. And I think the piece that we're really working, and I should say the through line for all of these bullet points is that this is such a planful process and that we're not waiting until August to implement and to plan, that planning is starting now and it's starting on multiple levels. So on a school-based level, even the adoption team is where we have begun. And some of that is in more structured workshops where we're beginning to look at what do we have in place and what do we need to get ready for the following year. It happens in individual conversations. For example, just today in my office, a first grade teacher came to me and she had some questions around, okay, here's what I'm doing currently in my foundational skills. What's it going to look like when we bring in this material? And just some of those genuine questions around practice and how we're going to make those shifts together are really important in laying the groundwork. But bigger picture, we're meeting in principal leadership teams with our ICs and principals and APs to start to look at what's that professional development going to look like? How do we build in those structures now and start laying the groundwork even before materials arrive to get ready for that process? A piece that we are looking at really carefully as a principal team, as a primary level team, or at our school data teams. And what do those look like? At Stafford, we're in year 4 of an MTSS where we are have a really tight data team cycle in place, but we have a lot of room to grow still. So that work, even next week, we're meeting, or this Wednesday, actually, we're meeting in our data teams, and we're looking at existing structures, bringing forward data and saying, what are our guidelines right now? What are our school guidelines for where we want our students to be, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and how are we going to begin to shift and move the dial for those students and accelerate growth through the rest of the year? What more do we want to bring in based on what our data is showing us around interventions and resources and materials? And that work is happening across all of the schools right now. Some exciting work, I think, and the team has, again, spoken around coherence with implementation of materials, but it's also as principals in our schools, how do we build coherence across the systems that we are putting into place to ensure that we are building our capacity as leaders to build the capacity of our teachers in that process. And when we're all on the same page and working together in service of accelerating learning for our students, that's the exact place where we want to be. We're in another interesting place too with the 120-minute literacy block. We have that in place now. We have that time blocked out in our schedule, but we have an opportunity to look at it and see where can we tighten that up. What's that going to look like? And it's going to look different K5. We're not going to put kindergartners into a 120-minute straight reading block. That would be a lot, right? 5th graders have more stamina. They have a little bit more ability to do that. So that piece around what does it look like to block out a schedule school-wide for 120 minutes? And then what will that look like by grade level? And how do we gather teacher voice in that piece? Because I think if anything, the adoption process taught me with all of our teams is that when teachers have a voice and when they're part of this process, we can ensure that fidelity to happen along teaching the curriculum. So we are working closely with our leadership teams within our school sites and as a broader primary team to look at that 120 minutes and then soon compare it across the materials that we are getting to ensure that we are providing everything that we need to within that 120 minutes. A piece that I'm really excited about is the high dosage tutoring. And that's another area when we link that to our data teams, where we look at and have opportunity to create schedules that not only provide the 120 minutes of literacy instruction, but also where's that additional time living to make sure that for our students that we've identified who need additional instruction, who are our most striving readers, are getting that? And what are the systems that we're putting into place to ensure that that happens within the core block and outside of it if they need it? And I think that really links back to our work plans as principals, the plans that I know you all have been a part of and been in schools to see and hear and learn about. It really starts there where we're saying, what is our data showing us in the area of literacy, knowing that we're bringing forward a new curriculum and we have opportunities to tighten up structures and systems in our instructional practices. What does the data show us are our most, our biggest areas of need? Creating shared goals as a staff. And I think you all saw that, the importance of that shared goal, shared learning, working document where we are coming back again and again to say, where are we at? Here's our goal, here's our action plan, here's what the data shows us. Where do we need to make adjustments? How are we going to do that together? And I think, again, this process really speaks around that collective efficacy. When we're in it together, we're going to make the biggest impact for our kids. And so I know you start the planning at spring, we're finishing up the year, we're already thinking around to the fall and what are our goals going to be and how are we going to begin to implement those and involving our teachers in that process. And I think the other piece, the last piece on here that has been such an asset this year is having the addition of literacy coaches in our schools. We were joking today, Kristen Halal shares Stafford and Bolton, and we're like, oh man, if only we could replicate you, like have a couple of Kristens in the school and a couple of Kristens over at Bolton and a couple of Megans everywhere, right? Because the work they're doing is really incredible. And it's, they're impacting teacher learning and student learning, and they're doing it with such grace and expertise. And so we really are, that's that's evolving as we go. I know literacy coaches are part of leadership teams at every site. They're sitting in undated team meetings, PLC meetings, working closely with teachers, really on the ground, gathering data, working with students, all towards those shared goals. So that's going to be a really important part of our implementation plan next year. And we're already starting that work this spring, putting those pieces in place. Okay, I think I hit most everything I wanted to say. I'll turn it over to
So in thinking about this, we, the triangle there, curriculum, instruction, assessment, Linn-Wilsonville didn't invent that. That's been sort of a known that captures the research about, you don't look at just one of them. You don't look at just the curriculum. And you heard them talking and Melissa just talking about the plans for instructional practices. Also, there was a question about the board receiving ongoing data and starting with data, and that's the assessment. That's the how's it working part. And we'll be using that, of course, to inform how we use the curriculum, what the instructional practices are, and sharing that and not waiting to look at, let's wait till the end of the school year and see what percentage of third graders and how do they do sort of thing. But looking at the 9 primary schools have these data teams, and how can we continue this process of sharing practices that happened in the adoption process with looking at how we're doing, and we're looking forward to doing that. And lastly, just this idea of our commitment to the equity, the model that Linn-Wilsonville selected, those 5 pillars, comes from the National Reading Panel in the year 2000. But as there has been more attention to all learners since the year 2000 and looking at what does that mean to talk about equity in practices, and looking at, for literacy, oral language, knowing your background, knowing your culture, and acting on it instructionally, daily, and connecting it to writing is key. We are so privileged here to have, and you heard examples this evening, excellent teachers, and we believe in them, and we know that that's what matters most, and truly have tried to facilitate this process so that we can allow them to select and own the very best tools to build on their excellent teaching. So if you have questions, there's 7 of us who will look at each other and decide who's going to answer what.
Yep, we'll open it up for questions, and I had to get my mic on here, so I was taking a note. Um, Before we get into questions, though, for this, do we need an initial motion in a second before we have discussion? Because it sounded like you were opening it up for questions prior to that. Or is this just a free, open Q&A?
I think you can do either and then distinguish what you would want this question section to be about, and then the motion, and then what you want the discussion after the motion, the discussion to be about to lead towards a decision.
Okay, and
Because
because
this is
we've,
a big topic and a big process.
I know, and because we've
Yeah.
invested a lot into this, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of vested interest, not just in this room, but I'm sure on that camera.
Yeah.
I'll open it up for a discussion and a Q&A prior to a motion being, so that
Yeah.
we can speak freely for a little bit.
Yep.
And then we'll move into a motion and a vote beyond that, or further discussion if there is further. And then we can pass it down to Director Douglas. But I'm just gonna start from this way and come back this way. So I'm gonna start with you, Director Shoemaker, and I'll open up the floor for you to have questions that you may have on your list. So let's start with you.
Yeah, I will start by saying thank you so much for the process. Thank you to district folks who directed a process, and then for the people who just owned it. So thank you for all that work. I think by all accounts, it was a really good process. And we have board goals right here, and one of them was around adoption. So we're hopeful that we can get to that tonight. I heard toward the end some discussion of data. I wonder if anybody would be willing to talk a little bit more about data, because there's an underlying belief in the belief that we needed to make some changes, an underlying belief that data has to drive some more changes, and not just the existing data, some of the data that Director Vidal referenced earlier, but the ongoing data we get from students. Do these materials support that?
So I think that's one of the pieces that really emerged as a strength of HMH, is that it had a variety of assessments. I think our next step as a team and as a district would want to have alignment in what assessments we feel are going to inform our instruction and going to be valuable. You know, we want to continue to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. And so I think, you know, as we unpack these materials, being tight as a district, or as at least 9 primary schools, what are the assessments that we feel are valuable? You know, are we going to give those end of module assessments? Do we feel like that gives us information that informs our instruction? I think we need to make those decisions, you know, as teams, but also as a district, so that we can share evidence, we can make improvement plans, we can make actionable steps. But I also think, you know, when I looked at the variety of assessments, it's really skill-based. It's not, you know, on level, off level. It's what does this child know and what are they ready to learn next? And so it's really actionable as a teacher. I can take that and say, oh, I gotta redo this, or this child's got it, I'm ready to move on. So that's what I appreciated about the assessments, that both just within all 5 of those pillars, you know, we looked at those different assessments, and they were represented within that curriculum that had a variety of assessments that could drive that instruction.
And to add on to what Dorothy just explained really.
Could you come to the microphone?
Yeah. To add on to what Dorothy just explained really well, not only do we have a variety of assessments within HMH, but we want to think about the purpose of assessment as it corresponds to our tiered instruction. So district-wide, we'll have that screener assessment to see who is meeting our expectations and these national norms and who is not. And then beyond that, those students who may need extra support, HMH provides diagnostic assessments. So we can see, like Dorothy said, what do they know and what do they still need further assistance in, so that we can have really targeted tier 2 and tier 3 instruction for our more emergent readers and writers.
And
Go ahead.
At home can only hear when
Oh.
there's a microphone, even though we can hear in the room.
And I think it's important to also to know that HMH is now partnering with MAPS, with the NWEA, and that information will, because they are partnering the two systems, what they are planning is that the two systems talk to each other, so we can get what the result from MAPS in English and Spanish, and then we can see in the curriculum, okay, this is what MAPS is telling me that these kids need, these students need, and I can go to my curriculum and see the correlation and what do I need to do. So I think that's key, because right now when we see in the conversation with teacher, it's like, oh, I get the report from MAPS and it tells me, oh, this kid needs this, but I don't have the curriculum or the section where I need to go and the materials to really individualize that instructions, and HMH provides that.
And then I heard, and earlier you were talking about, well, how will you know this is working? And so what you've just heard is, how do I know day to day what I should be doing with specific students and all students tomorrow? And they have selected a curriculum that informs them of that. But we have, and you heard that we use AimsWeb, and AimsWeb is an example of something where you can see from those results, what are some of those areas? So then you want a curriculum that shows within those areas, here's the key skills, so you can match that up. And then at a higher level, in terms of bringing skills together, you have NWEA MAP, which looks at, there's foundational skills, there's vocabulary, and there's literary comprehension and informational comprehension. So then you can see, all right, once students can decode words, once they can distinguish sounds, match them to letters, what sense do they make of that when they begin reading? NWEA MAP begins in kindergarten. And so that's what we were looking for, is something that informs teachers and specialists day to day, but that also matches up to more universalized data beyond the curriculum program itself. And so that's what we will be doing. And then in looking at, if we don't see shifts in the AimsWeb, if we don't see that in our MAP data, because MAP data is tied very closely, which is the reason that we use it in our school district, to that annual OSAS data. Then we look at programmatically, what are some things that we need to be looking at. So we'll start this data collection right away. You have to look at variables, you don't say, well, let's change the whole program in the first month that you're using it, but you can pretty quickly with the data teams that schools have and the ways that they look at all of this data all together, you start to see patterns and trends that then you can be more nimble and make adjustments to what are you emphasizing, how are you using the program.
Director Shoemaker, anything else? No? All right, Director Sloop? That's the same thing I was thinking.
What about me? Oh, I do have a couple questions. Well, more than a couple. So first of all, thank you for all of your thoughtful and intentional student-focused work. I appreciate every one of you and the other teachers and committee members who weren't here. One question I have is, what's the data or the results about HMH nationally? Like, how is that compared in other schools, other states? Do you have any information?
I'll start that and then others can chime in. That has come up a lot with, actually, that was one of the questions that we had at the first parent session is, why don't you look at the national data and what you know about this? Well, HMH, some of these curriculums, the earliest one was published in 2019 and some of them are 2022. So other districts might be a year or so ahead of us with this curriculum, but it's usually 2 to 3 years into a curriculum program where it gets beyond the reviews of, do they have all the components that rubrics say, to can we isolate the changes in how students are doing with reading to that curriculum? So we don't know of any national data at this point about an entire curriculum program that's on the state list, because if you look at the publication dates, they haven't been in use that long, but that will be forthcoming. And that's why we want to start looking at our own use of it, because we looked for that. It would help us if we could say, oh, this has been shown to be the most effective nationally. I don't know if others have
I
things
think
to
what's
add.
comforting to me is there is good data on UFly, which is that supplementary curriculum.
Yeah.
And the way that UFly is set up is exactly how the foundational skills is set up in HMH. So you go over, here's our new concept of the day. We're going to do phonemic awareness. Now we're going to do our phonics skill. Now we're going to write it. Now we're going to read it. Now we're going to do decodable text with it. It's that same pattern. And that's the pattern that we're seeing that really helps kids decode. And so that's, you know, K2 teachers, that's what we were looking for. And that's what we found in HMH and in UFly. And UFly has that data. It's just been around earlier and it's associated with the university. So they built in that research piece. I hope that helps.
Yes. And then another question I have is, you mentioned that they have a handwriting component. Is that K through 5 or is it just K through 2? Because I have received, I've met with several parents whose kids started in kindergarten during COVID, and so they were working on the computer. They never really learned how to, their penmanship, or even how to hold a pencil or a pen. Even the spatial part on a paper with the lettering, they were mixing uppercase with lowercase. Is that curriculum for handwriting through all of those grades? So some of those kids that are older can kind of get caught up on how to write on a piece of paper? Or is it K through 2?
So I know it's K through 2, and there is handwriting in 3, 4, 5, but it's going to look different.
Okay.
If I remember, the representative even talked about how manuscript starts in 2nd grade, end of 2nd grade, going into 3rd. So I know it continues. I would say that along with handwriting, along with many of the foundational skills, we're going to see that there are students who may have some gaps in some of their skills. And I think that's where that high dose tutoring, where that supplemental curriculum, but I also think that Word Study Studio, where we can really pinpoint where students' gaps are and really start to fill them in. That now we have this set toolbox to go to where we can start to give some direct instruction. Whether it be around handwriting, whether it be around decoding, letter sound knowledge. So I'm pretty sure that the handwriting goes K through 5. It just looks different and there's maybe a different routine, but I know it's solid from K2 and it's a part of that structured literacy. It's, I think, 9 different steps and that's one of them.
Okay.
And to add on to that, I think a difference we'll see as well is that when shifting to HMH, this handwriting is really explicitly taught so that students understand how to write these letters. And it's also taught in cursive as well. So that's something that I think is really well-rounded within HMH, but the bulk of it does happen in K2, but because it's so explicit, I think we'll see that transfer later on in grades 3 through 5.
Yes. Okay. And then as far as training, in our memo, it says that para-educators will receive support in training in small groups and individuals, but I didn't hear that tonight. Will they be trained as well in HMH and UFly?
Yes, they will. We, if you recall, this year, we actually extended the workday for our paraeducators. So they are available after school for time that they used to not be. And we've already used that for explicit professional learning. And we know that they are valuable team members when it comes to that all hands on deck style, support for, all the 4th graders in our school or all the 2nd graders in our school. So they will, under the direction of their teachers and their principal, be working right alongside teachers, and they will need training to participate in that. We are going to start with teachers, and then the next layer will be paraeducators, but it won't be, we'll wait, that's just our priorities right now is the classroom teachers.
Thank you. And then another question is regarding the implementation. So like if decisions are being made where you might have to pivot on something because based on some assessments or some data that you guys are getting about our students, is there going to be like a uniform documentation piece that will be filled out for each school? Like how are we going to be documenting what's working, what's not, what we have to pivot? So we're all kind of on the same pages and it's all cohesive.
Speak to this a little bit. So when we think about adapting our instruction, we can think about it in a few different ways. First off, if it's not working for that whole class tier 1 instruction, that's a shift that we have to make when we're working with the whole classroom using HMH or supplementing UFly as well. However, if we're finding that it's a really small group of students who need further support, we can think of that tiered instruction in a few different ways. First is extending the duration of it and the amount of time that they have, because sometimes students just need more opportunities to really master that skill. On top of that, this is when the training from the Institute for Multisensory Education will come into play, because it really does take on a hands-on approach. And students then have an opportunity to interact with what they're learning in kinesthetic ways and auditory ways, orally as well. So we can think about it then that we have those tier 1 adaptations we might make to our whole class instruction. But when it comes to those small groups of students who need more support, we would then alter our instruction by duration, amount, or the type that we're providing by using both HMH or supplementing with UFly.
I think to add on to that too, when we think about like implementation.
I think a lot about the professional development through that lens. And one thing that's really powerful in our data teams right now is that while we're looking at data and centering students in that process, it's also an opportunity to look at trends. And so like Megan was saying, there might be something in tier 1 that's not in place. If we're seeing many students showing gaps in a specific skill or area, that speaks to something that we can tighten up around a particular part of that, of the materials or the instructional practices. And look there first, is tier 1 in place? So, or is this an area for a staff where we need to do some more professional development around the implementation piece? So those data teams are really powerful as far as looking at student needs, but also a way to address professional development and teacher needs, if that makes sense. So I think next year I really see it as looking at so much of our work will be coming together to say, how is this going? What's working? What's not working? What do we need together to move forward? And when we're noticing some of those areas that might not feel like it's working as well as we would have expected it to, and then make those adjustments.
Okay. And then another question I have, and it's not pertaining to HMH, but it has to do with the old curriculum. So I was reading our policy and it said something that that it's kept for another cycle. But then I also see here that we can remove obsolete or inaccurate material, which the former wasn't on ODCE's list. It wasn't ever officially approved. We couldn't find any record. Has there been any talk about what's going to be done with the old curriculum that's in all the classrooms? Because for me, if I'm learning something new, it's much more comfortable for me to go back to the old what I know.
We have talked about that. First of all, just the bandwidth, within our teachers and specialists to not move to the new and to use a combination would not work well. And we actually have to make space. So that has already come up of how will we look at collecting it. Our district has some ways, so we certainly don't throw it away. We have some ways and other places where there are those who need it, where we actually set it up at our district operations center. So there will be a collection sort of piece. When we talked earlier about building on and keeping some things in place, those are structures. For example, the previous curriculum had some structures for working with small groups. for working with individuals, for having a short focused lesson. It's not the materials, but some of those structures where all children have an individual book box to practice their skills, and we need to put more decodable books in them. So when we say keeping some things, that's what's meant by that. It's the structures, the practices, but not the actual stuff. Besides, we don't have room for it.
I would just also add on that I think that's kind of our next step, is to look at what are those practices that we felt through our look fors, through our research, through our data. What are those things that we're just going to keep and carry through? You know, you talked about your son bringing home the encyclopedia. We still want kids doing that. We still want, you know, book boxes and enjoying books, time in books, but what are those books? So I think our next step is really to look at it through a student lens of what's a day in a life of a student in kindergarten, or like Melissa said, in 5th grade. What does that 120 minutes look like? And I think we're really discovering that it's going to look different for students, you know, depending on their grade level and what they need. But that I'm really excited that whether you visit my classroom at Beckman or Nancy's classroom at Willamette, that you're going to see the same visuals, that you're going to see the same kinds of books, that you're going to see the same stories, you're going to see the same anchor charts, you're going to see a similar flow and continued consistent language. So I think that's what I'm really excited to see. And I also hope that we continue to collaborate across buildings. I think this process has brought forward the value of that getting to hear what happens in Maria's 1st grade dual language class and what happens in Nancy's, you know, 1st grade class at Willamette. And I think it'll be that much more powerful when we have this same material and these same toolbox to pull from. So I'm excited to see the rollout and that next step, and looking at the day in the life of a 1st grader, given now our structured literacy routine, given this high quality text, given a book box filled with books that they can read, that every single word they can come across and decode and sound out and scoop up and understand. I talked about today having a 1st grader decode drumstick. Those are all sounds that I have explicitly taught. That's a really long word. It was all about Grandma Dot and how she fried up some chicken and he wanted the drumstick. And my emergent reader was able to decode that entire word and go back and sound it out. And he's like, yeah, I like drumsticks too.
And then my last question has to do with the Spanish version. How are we going to be able to include our parents, like our Latino parents, in this curriculum reading? Would they have, is any of this available online for them?
Yes, and that's something that we're really excited, is totally bilingual for Latino parents and English parents too. So if you have a child in dual language, you can see what we're doing, and it's explaining to you what we're doing in English, but you can also switch it to Spanish. And it's really powerful because even another teacher can enter the classroom and see what we're doing if they grab the teacher's guide. But everything is totally online. So kids can access that, and parents can access the whole curriculum online.
Great. Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
And Director Sloop, I really appreciate that question. We, as you recall, we also have fall goal setting conferences with parents, and we frequently bring out materials and use those to show what we're doing. Now we'll have materials in Spanish that we can bring out. So that will be a one-on-one opportunity to basically collaborate with a Spanish-speaking family or a family that's multilingual, just as we would an English-only family at that conference.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Wyatt. You need a little bit?
I have some comments from when we discussed as a board. My questions have all been asked at this point.
Okay, perfect. Director Vidal.
First off, I want to thank everybody today. Oh my goodness, it's late for me. All 5 of you have been exemplary tonight. I have really enjoyed your presentation. I appreciate the thoroughness of your answers. I appreciate the district's leadership in leading 67 teachers. I do have a question. Okay, given that the adoption process was intensive and comprehensive, what would be some of the shortcomings of this process if it was sped up, if you didn't have this year to look to go through this process?
Well, we do study what others are doing around us. We shared with this team and I think with our parent community that we have been watching for the last couple of years because not every state is on the same cycle. And so we look at who adopts. We also are networked through our ESD, through various groups we're in. So we kind of know where others are in the process. And one of the things when you go too quickly is you don't develop the ownership. And so it's harder to have everybody leave what you've been doing into if you have not completely immersed yourself in having a lens for what you're looking for, and then creating kind of this, oh, this is why we're moving towards this. That's one of the things that's talked about. There was a study done in 2019, 2020, a major one around professional learning, and saying you really have to do it with the curriculum and not have it be separate. And you really have to start with taking time with selecting, knowing the curriculum so you own it. Otherwise, it's something that could appear in your classroom. And we know it's messy and long having full participation. Also, you know, September 13th was the first date that we met. And we do know that they taught all day. There were principals all day and literacy coached all day. We compensated for time, but we did have those sessions spread out so we could go back to schools. So it wasn't just those who were on the team, because sometimes if you create and do it more quickly, an inside group, they're fine with it. But what about everybody else? They're still using the same materials or other things. And you don't bring this unified, if you're going to make the investment, you know, in the curriculum, how much is everyone invested in it? Of course, that does take more time to go back and forth for them to collect and share, and for principals to make time at Tuesday workshops for the adoption team members to talk. You have to have 2 weeks between sessions. If you want to do something in 4 months or so, you just can't quite do all those pieces. So that's one thing that's been seen, is you don't necessarily have full ownership and thorough use. Now, we don't do this with, say, everything. You know, when you have, say, science or social studies, not a subject that requires as much shifting, or a curriculum that's as huge and complex as your literacy curriculum. We don't believe in stretching it out just to stretch it out, but literacy, just, you know, 120 minutes of children's school day is spent with that. We have heard so much around and believe so much in what literacy is, literacy being freedom. And so we intentionally took the time to build the common understanding, to try to bring everybody into the process, and to have it be something that our teachers owned and, you know, wanted to work with. So that's one of the things that's been found, is you don't get that full ownership and fidelity. And then it's more gradual. It can take a couple of years then for people to start to live into even using the curriculum.
I would also just add on that, you know, throughout the process, we had some really difficult conversations around what are the things we want to let go of, what are the things that are not serving our students based on research, based on data, based on, you know, the OD's rubrics. And that if we didn't have those time for those conversations, I think the outcome may have been the same, but I think, again, that buy-in from all teachers, from all specialists, may not have been there. So I appreciated the ability to unpack the shift that is needed
through these conversations with my colleagues. I would also say, Barb and David were incredible facilitators of those conversations, that at no point did they not call on a hand that was up, that every voice felt comfortable in sharing, and that that voice was heard and honored. I at no point felt that I couldn't say what I thought or felt. And I think that the team would agree. And that principals also were incredible listeners, and that they did not insert their influence throughout the process, that it was really teacher and specialist driven. And yeah, I think it's evident that all 67 of us kept showing up even on Valentine's Day.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, I'm
Uh,
sorry. No, I have one. Yeah, one question.
Okay, sounds good.
A motion?
I don't have any questions for you. Because I've heard, I think, a lot of questions. So, yes. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt HMH into reading with UFly Foundations as the West Linn-Wilsonville School District's K-5 ELA instructional materials.
Second.
All right. I guess I'll open it back up for discussion. If anything has been left out or any other input that may need to be added, you have something?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start with Director Shoemaker.
Yeah, I want to first thank Director Sloop and Director Vidal for their earlier comments and statements, and remind folks that we don't talk about this stuff outside of board meetings, because that would be in violation of public meeting laws. So it's really nice to hear your thinking on that, and I'm going to share mine here. So I'm sometimes asked what boards do. And obviously we adopt curriculum. We're looking to do that tonight, but effective boards do more than that. We set goals for the district. We direct priorities. As elected community members, we select a focus and we push for implementation that reaches goals. Effective boards work well with superintendent offices. And I'm happy to say that we have had a good relationship with the superintendent and the superintendent's office. And I want to say that we established some board goals this fall, one of which included working through an adoption process for these materials. And in adopting these goals and adopting this goal, we acknowledged that our reading scores as measured by benchmark testing were simply not good enough. That was a driver for us, I think, for most of us. We also acknowledge the critical role early literacy plays in K-12 education and the strong value our community places on reading achievement. Those beliefs and values don't end at adoption. And I was very pleased to hear the thinking around what happens next. I believe we need quantifiably measurable, achievable goals around improvement. This is a local issue, but it's also an issue for democracy. Public education must support an informed citizenry, which is the foundation of a democracy. And in a diverse society, this is absolutely an issue of equity. So again, what do boards do? We set goals, we drive a focus, we push for results. I want to say tonight that I cannot think of a higher priority than improving literacy across this district, particularly in the early grades. Adopting materials is just the beginning. I believe adoption was done well, and I'll be voting for adoption tonight. But what comes next also has to be done well. Teacher training, high dosage tutoring, assessment, data collection, intervention strategies, the things we've heard tonight, all those have to be done well. Board and district leadership that gets us to our goals must be steady, determined, and effective and supportive. Our outcomes must improve, and this will not be easy. We'll need data to tell us what is and is not effective. We must have the willingness and agility to adjust as needed. There are districts that have succeeded in this work We should learn from them. There are districts that have approached this work with the best of intentions and failed. Some gave early efforts, but when they faced challenges, they lost focus. As a board, we cannot allow that. And I believe it is the board's role to see that the focus remains constant. Early literacy is a national concern. It's one which our state is trying to address, fortunately, with funding. We are in a good place to raise the trajectory of achievement in early literacy with funding and with intention. The challenge will be ours as board and district leaders to be accountable for that improvement. And that's what I have to say about it.
Director Sloop, any additional comments?
Yes.
Lovely.
So I was just going to say that in adopting HMH, I will be a yes. This is a big shift in structure, moving towards structured literacy. And as Director Shoemaker mentioned, the hard work begins now, which is the implementation. With teacher training, we must have a feedback loop and adjust as needed and be willing to admit that something is not working and that we need to change it, fix it, and move forward. And also ensure that I want the teachers to know we appreciate all the hard work and we fully support you moving forward with HMH and UFly. And I hope, Dr. Ludwig, that you will continue giving us little reports as the training goes and the implementation goes of the if we adopt HMH.
Director Vidal.
I will be voting in support of HMH as well. I've made plenty of remarks this evening. I just want to thank the teachers and the district one more time for this this extensive experience. I really appreciate the highly engaged and principals, teachers, and district. It really shows what we can do when we partner together, when teachers and parents and administrators partner together to do better. So that's it.
Vice Chair Wyatt.
Yeah, throughout this whole process, I've had my own triangle similar to the one on the screen, or my own sense of balance about how we need to run this process. And it's really balancing speed, inclusion, and best practices, with the idea that if we moved too fast, we were going to leave some voices out of the process and maybe not do as much research as we could. But that if we were overly cautious, we were going to slow things way down and not get the solution that we need. And what I heard tonight from this team was that you found that balance, that perfect balance, that gives me the confidence to support this curriculum adoption. Because you've shown that you were inclusive and intentional in how you had these discussions. You relied on research and best practices, and you were mindful of the timeline that you had set out at the beginning to follow. And that matters, because I think what that does is it builds trust in the work that's been done and our ability as a board to show that we trust your recommendation. And the other thing I've been reflecting on has actually been related to school visits and seeing the muscle that all of our primary schools are building with data teams, and the walls of data at the student level, class level, grade level, school level. It's a work in progress, but it's incredibly impressive. And it's something that now it sounds like you're going to have even more data points that you can look to use that data-driven decision-making for what's best for our kids. And so I know that there's still reporting and planning that needs to be done, but I also just have a lot of faith based on, again, that trust that you've given us through this process. And then I just want to make sure that if folks at home have looked at the agenda packet, to me, some of the most powerful sections on here are the last two bulleted items on implementation and instructional improvement planning, and then also adoption team requests for implementation, because it shows me a plan that's going to be used for implementation. And then it also reminds me that this adoption team has been very vocal in what you think needs to happen next, which again, I think is so critical in thinking about how this plan can be most successful. So to sum it all up, I just appreciate the trust that you've built through this process. It gives me trust in what you're recommending, and hopefully it gives the community trust in what we are, it sounds like, going to vote to approve this evening. So thank you all.
Yeah. For me, I don't have any questions. I think what I have more of is just appreciation for the people in the room who've put a lot of time into this. And I think that one thing I've learned throughout this 14-month journey is that it's had to have a lot of consistency. And I think that group in the back over there, you might be the most consistent group of parents that I've ever met. And I think that, we've had a lot of tough conversations, I think, over the last 14 months. You've all had your own tough individual experiences within this district. And I guess I want to thank you for staying committed to this cause, knowing that many of you may not have kids in the district anymore because of your experience, and you've taken them and put them in someone else's hands. And I hope that through this process that maybe you've just moved a little more towards the teachers, the educators, the board, that would give you at least a sense of like, it's okay for you to put your kids back in our hands. And we do want them to have a good experience and good outcomes. And so with all of that, though, I'd also want to put out there are going to be mistakes made. And this feeling of, man, we got it right, we can exhale, I think it's going to be short-lived, because people have to learn how to teach this. They have to figure out how to fumble through it. And so I hope when the mistakes are made, because they will be made, that you have the same patience that you're having right now towards the people who make those mistakes. And so if we can finally start to change the culture of being transparent. I know I'm going to make mistakes. I continue to make them. I own them. I just try to get better. But as we make them, we have a choice in how we respond to mistakes. We can respond in a way that is a wedge between our community, or we can respond in a way that brings our community together. And I hope we choose the latter. And that's all I have to say about that. You may now call the vote.
Thank you. Director Shoemaker,
Yes.
Director Sloop,
Aye.
Chair Taylor,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wyatt. Aye. Director Vidal.
Aye.
Thank you.
Let me find my place on this agenda, so bear with me. Before we move on, should we take 5? Do we have this? Oh, what do we got? Oh, I forgot. Okay, that's right. That's right. Okay, then let me gather myself here.
The auditor.
No, sorry.
Mhm.
Gotcha. What we'll do is we'll take a break in between this and before Dr. Hughes comes. Is that, or is it all together? It's all together? Okay, then we'll wait. I'll power through. You're right. All right. I'll let the room kind of clear first, and then we'll move on. Does that work? Okay. Oh, okay. What time? Okay, makes sense. All right, moving into the auditor's oral report. We have Polly Rogers online. And will we be able to patch them in to where we can see them on screen? Okay.
Good evening, board member. It's so nice to see you this evening. So as you know that our audit report for 2023 had been complete. So tonight I have with me is Brad and Brian, the audit team from Poly Roger. They zoom in. So before Brad and Brian present the audit responsibility, the scope, and the audit finding, I would like to take a few minutes here to share with you about the background of the audit. So we often hear audit report. The audit report is annual comprehensive financial report is a set of financial statements that comply with the accounting requirement established by the Governmental Accounting Standard Board, and it must be audited by an independent auditor using general accepted government auditing standard. So this report is finalized, posted on our website, and submitted to the Secretary of State. One of the comments that we hear is seem like there is two reports that submit, one to ODEs and one to the Secretary of State. Is the deadline for ODEs is on December 31st. And when the auditor finishes the audit on December 31st, we submit the financial information to the auditor. At that time, the auditor submit the draft of the final report to the ODE, so the ODE doesn't have to give the money back from the state school fund support. So after that, there were several recommendations for journal entry. One of the example was when we received the money from Clackamas ESD, that came to us in September and supposed to come to us in August. So we put that revenue in the 23-24 year, but that's supposed to be posted in 22-23. So therefore, after the first draft of the audit, we have some journal entry to make sure that our expenditure and revenue recorded into the right year. And because of that, we finalize all of the financial information by early week of February. And that time where our auditors submit that report to the Secretary of State. And I believe they might already submit the final one to ODE, and ODE might not update the report yet, but I will have Brad mention about that. So the next one is when we look at, next slide, please. Okay, yeah, next one, please. This one, when we look at the annual comprehensive financial report, we recognize that it consists of three sections. The first one is introductory. This section orients and guides the reader throughout the report. And then the second section is the financial section that presents the district basic financial statement, as well as notes on the statement and the independent auditor report. The last is the statistics section, and that provides the additional financial and statistical data that include financial trends that may that help the reader understand better about the district activity. So the purpose, next one, please. The purpose of the audit is to conduct it using sampling, inquiry, and analytical work to opine on the fair presentation of the basic financial statement and compliance with generally accepted accounting principle and auditing standard, the Oregon Municipal Audit Law, and the related administrative rules. Last, federal, state, and other agency rule and regulation related to expenditure on federal award. So with that, I would like to invite our audit team to present and share with you about their responsibility, the scope of work, and the audit finding.
Thank you, Sun Lee. My name is Brad Serrano, and with me I have Brian Thompson. So I'd just like to say good evening and thank you for allowing me to present the district's audited financials tonight. I'm the audit supervisor in charge of the audit for West Linn-Wilsonville School District. Roy, the managing partner, sends his regards and is sorry he can't join us tonight. I know we all have a busy and full agenda, so I don't plan on taking too much of your time. First, I will go over the highlights of the board letter, then the audit results, briefly discuss new items this year, and then I can answer any questions you have. So if I could have you turn your attention to the governing body letter. This letter goes over our responsibility as the auditor, the responsibility of management, as well as our best practices and a few other miscellaneous items. First off, as we look at this letter, I would like to say that this letter has a lot of boilerplate and standard industry jargon that we like to use for all of our districts. So just keep that in mind as we read through it. On page 1 of the letter, you will see 3 bulletin points under the purpose of the audit. Essentially, these are the 3 audits we conducted and reported on. The first one, like Dr. Hughes said, was the Generally Accepted Accounting Principles or GAAP audit. Then we had the Oregon Municipal Audit Law and Related Administrative Rules Audit or OMS audit. And lastly, we have the federal, state, and other agency rules and regulations related to the expenditure of federal awards. A little below that, we talk a little bit about our responsibility as the auditor. We have a responsibility to express opinions, whether the basic financial statements prepared by management are presented fairly in all material aspects and conform with the U.S. GAAP. We consider internal control over financial reporting in order to determine audit procedures for the purpose of expressing an auditor's opinion on the basic financial statements and compliance to tests in accordance with the uniform guidance. We also look at examining on a test basis evidence supporting the amounts and disclosures in the financial report, as well as using this to understand holistically the district as a whole and its environment, including internal control, and we use it to assess whether the risk of material misstatements of the basic financials is there, whether they're materially misstated or not. On page 2 of the letter, you'll see the results of the audit. I'm happy to say that we have issued an unmodified opinion and have found no exceptions or issues with state minimum standards or the financial awards, and we did not need to issue a management letter, which is exactly what you want to see in an audit. We found no issues of non-compliance and no question costs. We as the auditors have a responsibility to review these programs and to give our opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and to test internal control systems, compliance and laws and regulations and requirements mandated by these various grants and federal money. We encountered no difficulties in performing and completing the 2023 audit and have no disagreements with management. Additionally, for the past couple of years, we've been looking at the Student Investment Account money or CM money that the district receives in order to assist with COVID-related expenses. We tested all reimbursements and expenditures and have no findings in that area. Additionally, over the last couple of years, we've implemented GASB 87 and GASB 96, of which the district has chosen to use DebtBook, a third-party service that we have recommended they use in order to help implement these complicated standards. It really saves us a lot of time using DebtBook. In addition, we took a look at the district's long-term debt and capital bond finances, and we're happy to say everything is in compliance in that area as well. This was a clean audit, and the management team has done a great job. We asked for a lot of information and documentation to conduct these audits, and everyone was helpful and a joy to work with. Overall, we want to point out and applaud management staff, specifically Dr. Hughes Geraldine, Annie, and Dr. Ludwig, as there are no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and we have issued a clean opinion, which is exactly what you want to see in a financial audit. Overall, again, everything looked very clean and well done, and it was truly a joy to work with your district. That is everything I have. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Okay. Any of you have questions up here?
I just wanted to remind the board members, it's a 118-page document, so that's why we sent it to you electronically.
Right.
So if you were looking for some of the things that Brad was referencing, you can just click on it online or I can help you find it on your laptop if you were wanting to reference it. We didn't make a paper copy
No,
for you tonight. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think so, because I had already looked, so.
Yeah.
You have any questions?
I do. Is Brad still here or these could have?
Yeah, he's still here. He's up.
Hi, yes.
Hi, Brad.
Hi.
So you used the term internal control a couple of times in there. Could you help me understand that a little bit, what that refers to?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Internal control refers to just the district's internal processes in regards to the different levels of approval, or basically how the finance office operates. They have certain controls that they have to abide by in order to function properly. And we take a look at those. Did you want me to elaborate more?
Oh, I think that's good. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Director Sloop?
So for the internal control, we have a lot of procedure in the business office. Like one of the example is the person who do the bank reconciliation will not have the authority to transfer money between the accounts, or the account receivable who receiving the revenue in should not receive the money direct. The money will come to one other person or the staff in the business office. That staff will do the counting the money and then recording how much that coming in, and then give that money to the account receivable staff to do the deposit slip. Also, like when the school submit the requisition into the financial system, we have one staff review the requisition, and then another staff turn to PO, and then process payment. Another process the payment, print check, and then send it out to vendor.
Okay. Director Sloop, anything? Director Vidal? Vice Chair Wyatt?
Just want to say congratulations. I mean, it's a huge accomplishment and a reflection on the business office's professionalism and a way to signal that, independent third-party auditors have looked at our financial operations. And we have the best possible result. So thank you for all of your work, and to your team for all of their work as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And I do not have any questions for them either. So this is not an action item, so
Yeah, no action.
yeah, no action is required on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everyone. You guys are in great hands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the
Alright.
next items I have is the financial statement for the general fund. So this information for this month is, I have several updated compared to last month report. Next one, please. So as of December 31st, I was reporting to the board that the total revenue that we estimate to receive throughout this year was about 130 million. But this month, we have two changes. One is in the common school fund, and another is in the interest line items that make our revenue estimate to 131 million. The common school fund projected to come in a little bit less than the adopted budget by 73,000. When we put the budget together last year, we was estimate to receive 1.2 million for the common school fund. The common school fund is a source of local revenue, and that comes to us from the Department of State Land, where they invest and earn interest, and they use that interest to distribute out to 197 school districts in Oregon. So we received the statement from Oregon Department of Education sharing that the common school fund estimate to come into us around 1.1 million, which is 73,000 less. Another items under the revenues is the interest. So as of January 31st, the actual year-to-date interest earned for general fund was already 1.5 million. And when we build a budget together, the business office used 3% interest earned, but throughout the year, the interest earned came in very high, 5.5, some months even 9%. So therefore, as of year to date, we already have 1.5 million actual interest earned in our book. So to project from now until year end, the business office anticipate to receive another at least 750,000 in this line item. So that's why the estimate revenue for general fund for this month report came in a little bit higher compared to the December report. Under the expenditure, I have 3 items that slightly different compared to December report. The first one is salary and associate payroll costs. When we say 100 and 200, that's the object code. The object code and the accounting code that we received this guideline from Oregon Department of Education. So when we build the budget together, we wasn't in the process of using Edu staff at the third company to provide services for us on the sub. So we budget the sub and the benefits associated with salary in the 100 and the 200 object code. On July 1st of 2023, we contract with Edu staff, the third company who provide a sub for us. And because Edu staff is the third company serving at the professional services for the district, therefore, we cannot pay them through the salary or payroll association object code. We have to use professional purchase services with the object code 300. And that's the recommendation to us from ODE. So the total cost that Edu staff will cost us, the actual and then the projected until year end will be around 3 million. 1.8 for salary and another 1.2 for payroll associate costs. So you will see at the end of the year, I will do the budget appropriation to make sure that our funding align with our the spending fund. So right now, I'm just give you a head up. I haven't done any of that yet. And then under the purchasing services, the actual expenditure and the projected for year end come in higher due to several reasons. And one of the main reason is, not the main, but one of the reason is when we budget for the electricity utility, it was 11% in 2023. And then they raised another 17% in 2024. So beside the utility that raised up high, we also have the gas going up by 24% in 23. And it will continue to increase. So under the 300 object code, the one that take out actual expenditure higher than the adopted budget is utility, gas, water, and wage. Water and wage is going up by 10%. And then other expenditure that we wasn't aware of, we are aware of, but it takes every 3 to 5 years. It's like the sprinkler system. So every 3 or 5 years, we have to replace it. We have to replace it. Or unexpected expenditure such as the trash compactor for the high school, for the Riverside High School, the radon mitigation for the primary school. So there are several unexpected projects that arise. Yeah. And then after the purchases services, the 400 object code, which is supplies and material. In here, based on the December report, I was estimate this area might have 500,000 over the budget, but I received another projection from Teaching and Learning Department sharing the cost of the curriculum and instructional services. So we might have $1 million over than the budget. So with the expenditure the estimate for the expenditure, total expenditure will be 146.5 million. And that gives us the estimate ending fund balance about 19.5 million, which is 14.94% of the total general fund. So with that, I'm open for questions.
Sure. Any questions? No? Director Sloop? Director Vidal?
So given the recent media coverage of the state's largest school districts, staggering budget cuts of 30 to 40 million, how important is keeping the district's reserve at its current level of around 7.3 million?
This is a very good question. And throughout the board meeting, a lot of board members asked the question, public is curious about it. So we've been follow the guidelines of GFOA. So GFOA is a virus to have like 16% or 2 months of our revenue or 2 months of our operational expenditure. And not only the GFOA recommend this reserve and then fund balance, but the the Oregon Department of Education School Finance also agreed and advised school districts should follow the guidance from GFOA. So based on my December report, it was about 21 million. That's our about 2 months of operational expenditure.
Vice Chair White? None? I don't have any either.
I just
so-
have one more quick
Oh,
question.
go-
Sorry, everybody. Okay.
No need to.
I was wondering, there's been a lot of news coverage about summer learning. And I was wondering how much we budget for summer learning and how the state's decrease in 20%. Okay. How does the state's decrease of 20% in the of our summer learning funding, how will that impact us this year?
So when we set the budget back in May and June,
Yeah.
we didn't put the governor's grant in there because
Okay.
it wasn't on the table, it wasn't being discussed. And even last summer, the grant that we got, it was just for that summer. So there was no guarantee that it was going to be given every year. So we budgeted just in our general budget, the cost of summer school, I think about 250,000 in our general budget. As you know, now the governor proposed going into the short session, $50 million again for another summer learning grant. My understanding is that it's going to the Ways and Means Committee at only 30 million. So less than anticipated. I don't know if some districts were counting on it and then didn't put anything in the budget, but we have money. Whatever our allocation is, whatever gets passed, we then likely have to do a 25% match because that's what the other grants have always asked. So we'll see what the conditions are with this grant when it does come out through the short session, the amount per district and what kind of requirements, strings attached in order to get the money. And then we'll adjust accordingly. Certainly we could use more money and do a little bit more. Sometimes it's hard because teachers don't want to teach all summer long. They'll give maybe 3 or 4 weeks. So we can't just create something more extraordinary than what we have the time from our teachers to provide as well. But it can certainly provide some relief. And then last year, some of that took the pressure off of our general budget because we were able to use that grant. Does that help? Thank you for paying attention to what's happening through the legislation. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Could I make a comment about these monthly reports and just
Sure,
something
sure.
to pay attention to? So I know it's really small font on the screen, but maybe you have it on your laptop. So when Dr. Hughes gives these updates, and you've become really astute at understanding the different columns. In that blue column around year-end projection, which is what are we working with right now? Because adopted budget happened way back in May. Things have changed since then. It stays static. It's what you approved. But the blue column, the green is the working budget, but the blue column is what we're projecting. I think it's important for you to notice that our expenditures exceed our revenue. And they have for several years. We've had ESSER funds, we've had various grants that have come in that have allowed us to do more with less revenue because of federal or state assistance. And now what you're hearing is some of that bubble of funding going away. So when you think about those, that relief that kind of came almost like a savings account, as districts expend that, they have to live more closely within their typical revenue and expenditures. And that's what some of these districts are trying to correct that. Because if you put expenses in that long outlive a short-term grant, then you have to, when the grant is over, if you decide what to do with that staffing or that program. We're no different. We're looking at a period of time now where each year as we go on, our ending fund balance is getting smaller, which means we have to live more within our revenue and our expenditures have to be closer together. Our grants are accounted for. We have to spend those based on the requirements. So you'll hear likely a budget message from me in May that speaks to that reality and how we work with our associations as we go into negotiations is an understanding about that as well. And that's what you're hearing statewide is what's happening and will be no different either. So I just want you to notice that in there. If you have questions beyond this meeting, certainly you can set up a time with me or Dr. Hughes, but we'll be sharing more as we get closer to that budget time.
all right. Well, it is, I hope that I won't ask the question that I really want to ask. I'll wait till after we get more financial data, but I know you've got negotiations coming up and I I just start to, when I see a trend like this, it makes me think with negotiations coming up, how long is it before, if we're talking about a break-even point, it's not a break-even. How long is it before we may end up in a position like we've seen in other school districts, whether it be Portland Public or it be Kaiser, where we know that more than likely our staff is going to be asking for raises, but we're already operating at a deficit. And we got to eat really good during this kind of time of everyone believing that the world was going to end and now getting back to reality. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I wish you the best of luck with that. And I just hope that people who are sitting on the other side understand that you could either eat really good for a couple of years and then get laid off, or you can potentially, right, if budgets don't happen and we don't get political support, or you can make sensible decisions that allow us to not run out of money. So too many variables out there to have an educated conversation about it, but I hope that the state commits more to education, because this is evident that it needs to. So that's it from me. And doesn't look like we have anybody for second public comment. So, well, oh yeah.
Someone to you. Michael Wood, could you come up to the,
Oh,
this is Mr. Michael Aloy. He's our new assistant business manager in the office. And
face looks familiar.
yeah, they recognize him formally, worked with Polly Rogers, and gets the award for sitting through a very long first meeting.
Wow.
But just wanted to introduce Michael to all of you, and familiar face to us, person we've worked with a number of years, and now of course we get to work with every day. So joining the
Hey,
team.
well, nice to meet you, Michael.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sitting through all this too. I know we're a
You'll
fun
hear
group.
more from Michael in the future, you know.
Right. Well, this is
be
where all the fun
great part of
happens.
the team.
So welcome to the party.
Especially the budget meetings. Yeah.
Right. Well, if there's nothing else, next board meeting is April 1st, next work session on the 15th, and you guys can look at the rest. So,
Session is our second one with our high school students.
oh, that's
So we've
a
all,
fun one.
remember, we have that second topic already decided upon. Director Sloop's done
That's
some
right.
preliminary
Director
work, and
Sloop
so,
is the all-star.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
so
All
we'll get
right.
that second one done as well.
Thank you, guys. Meeting is now officially adjourned.